Chapter 2884. Yi Shiwen, how dare you? With an angry roar, Ingbumier rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had stolen something that should have belonged to him. This was the only thought in his mind. From Yi Mo's body, one could see how many benefits they had obtained. But now, even Yi Shiwen had come out. He didn't dare to think about how many benefits had been plundered. His heart was simply dripping blood. Especially when he saw the crack behind Yi Shiwen disappear. He was even more furious. Now, not only was his meat eaten by someone else, but he didn't even get to drink any soup. This was ridiculous. A sword appeared in Ingbu hand, and he attacked from the sky. In this attack, there was an invincible power within it. It split the sky and the earth. After all, he was an old peak quasi-emperor. In terms of strength, he wasn't much weaker than the Mahasvara. Although he didn't have a Dao weapon, he still couldn't be underestimated. Yi Shiwen, be careful. Suddenly, Yi Mo shouted. Right now, Yi Shiwen didn't have a Dao weapon to protect himself. Naturally, he couldn't be compared to before. It's okay. Yi Shiwen didn't care. You're just a clown? Ingbumier, I've received a lot of help from the Demon King. Today, I'll help him get rid of you, a disobedient disciple. Facing the sword that was slashing down, Yi Shiwen didn't dodge. Instead, he punched out. Bang! Yi Shiwen's fist directly bombarded the sword's body, and a loud sound burst out like a great bell. The sound waves spread out and vibrated everyone's ears, making them feel like they were in a trance and panic. All of a sudden, the sword in Ingbu hand started to vibrate. Cracks appeared on the sword's body. His palm instantly exploded. It was a mess of flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Impossible! Ingbu was knocked back a few steps by this huge force. Only then did he recover and suck in a breath of cold air. The result of this exchange was completely out of his expectations. It was not as easy as he had imagined. Previously, Yi Shiwen had possessed a Dao tool. After all, he was also self-aware. It was normal for him to be unable to break the time robe, which was an illustrious Dao tool. However, Yi Shiwen didn't have any Dao tool with him now. Compared to before, it was simply incomparable. How much wealth did you steal from me? Ingbu roared. He was extremely angry. He spat out a mouthful of essence chi onto his sword. The cracks on his sword instantly healed up. Then he continued to slash towards Yi Shiwen as if he had gone crazy. His sword slashed down, and a battlefield was formed almost instantly. Its power was unparalleled, and it was even more violent than before. This kid must have obtained some great benefits. He's even more difficult to deal with. Let's attack together and finish him off while he's not around the Dao artifact. At this moment, the four-faced underworld lord also made his move. He suddenly waved the demon subduing pestle in his hand. As he waved it, a monstrous long river of light swept across the sky. It covered Yi Shiwen in an instant and blasted over with a loud bang. The Mad Blood Underworld Lord directly formed an incomparably huge blood-colored seal that suppressed Yi Shiwen. On the other side, the Primordial Underworld Lord's Primordial Dharma Wheel erupted with a shocking light. However, it didn't attack Yi Shiwen. On the contrary, it went towards Yi Mo. It stalled him and created the best environment for the others to kill Yi Shiwen. Almost without any words, they could automatically cooperate with each other. They had an incomparable tacit understanding. Yi Shiwen, be careful. Quickly retreat. Yi Mo quickly shouted. He wanted to break through the Primordial Underworld Lord's seal, and he was even more frantic. They're just clowns. Watch how I kill them. Yi Shiwen didn't care. In his body, there was an unimaginably huge power surging. Those who didn't understand would never understand. Yi Shiwen instantly made his move. Yi Shiwen took the lead and punched out, directly hitting the blood-colored seal of the Mad Blood Underworld Lord. Bang! That blood-colored seal was shattered by Yi Shiwen's punch almost instantaneously. Puff! The Mad Blood Underworld Lord spat out a mouthful of blood. He had been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. It was just a single blow, but he, a top-notch underworld lord who had a supreme reputation in the underworld kingdom, had actually been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. What the hell was this? The mad blood underworld lord couldn't believe it. At this moment, he truly felt Bu Mie's depression. Was there anything more frightening than his full strength being easily broken by someone? However, at this moment, the other two's attacks were completely over. Now is the time. Kill him. Bu Mie shouted. He didn't care that the mad blood underworld lord was seriously injured. He wanted to take this opportunity to kill Yi Shiwen. You want to take advantage of the situation? You're thinking too much. Yi Shiwen shouted. Waves of golden light erupted from his body. He transformed into a 3-meter-tall golden body to protect himself. Bu Mie and the four-faced underworld lord's attacks landed heavily on Yi Shiwen's golden body. However, they couldn't even break through the golden body. They didn't even leave a mark on it. On the contrary, the huge recoil caused their hands to be slightly numb. Damn it! How can this be? The four-faced underworld lord couldn't help but shout in frustration. Although they couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen just now, that was because he had borrowed the power of a Dao tool. Now he was able to fight them with his bare hands. Just how many benefits did he gain from it? He couldn't imagine how many benefits a person could obtain inside to raise his cultivation to this level in one go. Although Yi Mo's cultivation level was much higher than Yi Shiwen's, the combat power that Yi Mo displayed was at most similar to theirs. This didn't seem that shocking. However, Yi Shiwen was different. Although he had only increased by one level, his combat power had undergone an earth-shaking change. Even without the help of a Dao tool, he could fight them effortlessly. This was the most terrifying thing. The Hidden King's face revealed a somewhat excited expression. Just now, he had almost thought that they were going to die here. Compared to Yi Shiwen, Yi Mo was still slightly inferior. The defensive line was also constantly retreating. They were almost forced to the edge of the crack. Moreover, they couldn't get close to the crack. After all, they weren't the descendants of the Demon King. They didn't expect that Yi Shiwen would appear at such a crucial moment. Once he made a move, he reversed the disadvantageous situation and changed the situation in an instant. All of a sudden, they were suppressed to the point where they couldn't do anything. This feeling was like riding a roller coaster. All of a sudden, they had risen from the bottom to the sky. That feeling was really great. On the other side, Yi Qianqian's face also had a somewhat happy expression. The sweat on her face had also evaporated. When the battle was the most intense just now, even she had rushed to the front line just to buy time for Yi Shiwen. Now that it was finally done, her heart was naturally incomparably happy. Yi Mo, let that guy come over. He's just a bunch of clowns. No matter how many of them there are, it's useless. Yi Shiwen said nonchalantly after he swept away the attacks. Yi Shiwen, don't be too arrogant. Bummy's entire body surged with vitality. The places that had been injured by Yi Shiwen just now had almost recovered in an instant. At his level of cultivation, his physical body was already incomparably mysterious. Injuries that were incurable in the eyes of ordinary people were almost healed in the blink of an eye for him. Arrogant? Ha ha ha! Yi Shiwen only laughed out loud. It's useless no matter what you say now. No one can save you. As soon as Yi Shiwen's voice fell, his entire body disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Bummy. His palm struck down with the power to split the sky. Bang! Two wings suddenly appeared behind Bummy's back, completely protecting him. It was the demon's wings. Yi Shiwen, I told you that you're too arrogant. Do you think that you're the only one who can use the demon's wings? Bummy laughed out loud. However, before he could finish laughing, he saw a hand suddenly pierce through the demon's wings. Then another hand directly pierced through. Rip! There was a loud tearing sound. It was as if the entire sky had been torn apart. Then the entire sky suddenly collapsed. His demon's wings were instantly torn apart and turned into nothingness. Impossible! Bummy exclaimed. Apart from increasing one's speed, the demon's wings were also extremely strong for defense. Yi Shiwen had used this method to save himself many times and block the attacks of others. No matter how strong Yi Shiwen was, it was impossible for him to casually tear apart his demon's wings. Why is it impossible? When it comes to understanding the demon's wings, I'm far more knowledgeable than you are. With one look, I know how to construct your laws. Have you ever heard of a butcher dismembering a cow? Yi Shiwen suddenly flashed and appeared in front of Ing Bummy. He had done it like a butcher dismembering a cow. He understood it to the extreme, which was why he could easily accomplish things that others couldn't even imagine. Previously, he hadn't been strong enough, which was why Ing Bummy had been able to take it head-on. Now, Yi Shiwen's skills were completely different. The situation had been completely reversed. Damn it! Ing Bummy gritted his teeth. In his heart, he thought so fast. They both cultivated the demon's wings, but in terms of speed, his cultivation was being played around by Yi Shiwen's hands. Too slow, Yi Shiwen said mockingly. He struck out with his palm and ruthlessly landed on Ing Bummy's chest. Bang! Ing Bummy cried out in pain. His entire body was instantly sent flying. There was a huge bloody hole in his chest. In that instant, he had been severely injured by Yi Shiwen. Ing Bummy was sent flying like a meteor. He screamed again and again. Are you still going to hold back? What are you waiting for? Ing Bummy screamed in pain. Chapter 2885. Ing Bummy's entire body was sent flying. His blood splattered across the sky. Everyone saw this. It was dismal. It was simply too dismal. It was simply unimaginable that a dignified peak quasi-emperor like him would be defeated in such a humiliating manner. Yes, from their point of view, this could only be described as humiliating. It was simply humiliating. It was simply humiliating. However, this scene had unfolded before their eyes. Regardless of whether they were willing to believe it or not, they had to accept this fact, especially the four-faced underworld lord and the others. They felt as though they were about to faint. The changes before and after were too great. Previously, when they couldn't take down Yi Shiwen, they only felt that it was troublesome. However, it was no longer troublesome now. It was simply a matter of taking their lives. Let's go all out. Summon the great emperor to suppress him. The four-faced underworld lord roared. The others gathered around him. It was obvious that the four-faced underworld lord was the leader among them. In terms of strength, the four-faced underworld lord was also slightly stronger. Therefore, he was naturally the one who gave the orders. At the same time, an incomparably terrifying death aura erupted from the bodies of the three of them. It instantly pierced through the sky like a huge rod, stirring up the momentum of the heavens. Countless terrifying forces rushed down along with their death aura, wrapping around the three of them in the sky. Then, they formed an incomparably huge figure. This figure was dressed in a grayish-white robe. It looked like a middle-aged man with a slightly pale face. There wasn't the slightest bit of death aura around his body. He seemed just like an ordinary human. The moment she saw this figure, Yi Qianqian's face instantly turned pale. This was because she recognized the figure in front of her. Who exactly was it? Yi Shiwen, be careful. This is the Underworld Emperor. The incarnation of the Underworld Emperor is here. Yi Qianqian's usually calm voice actually trembled a little. One could imagine how much of a deterrent this Underworld Emperor was to her. He was one of the only two emperors in the Underworld, and he was also the mortal enemy of the Underworld. Even after countless years, this face would never be forgotten, especially when she had just seen this face when she received the inheritance of the Lord of the Underworld. She had promised to avenge the Lord of the Underworld, and now she saw it again. Even if it was just an incarnation, it was already shocking enough. Unlike the previous Emperor Corpse, the Emperor Corpse was just a dead object. Furthermore, the Inverse Emperor was not strong enough and could not bring out the true strength of the Emperor Corpse. Even so, it still had the combat strength of a peak quasi-emperor. Now, however, a sovereign lord's will and primordial spirit had descended. With the help of the four-faced underworld lord, the crazed blood underworld lord, and the primordial underworld lord, the situation was completely different. Ming Di descended and turned his head. He didn't look at Yi Shiwen, but at Yi Qianqian instead. There was a flash of astonishment in his eyes. With his level of cultivation and experience, it didn't matter how deep Yi Qianqian's concealment was. He would be able to see through her at a glance. You must have obtained the inheritance of the Lord of the Underworld. Emperor Hades spoke slowly. His voice was not loud, but it was powerful and resonated with the great path. This was the supreme realm of a sovereign monarch, the words of a sovereign monarch. That's right. Yi Qianqian quickly calmed down after her initial panic. It was just a primordial spirit before her. Although it was terrifying, it was not a true sovereign emperor descending. Disciple Yi Qianqian greets Uncle Ming Di. Yi Qianqian regained her composure. She didn't panic at all. You still recognize me as your uncles? A strange smile flashed across Ming Di's face. Of course. No matter what, seniority is still the same. Yi Qianqian replied in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Ming Di was her uncle and a supreme sovereign lord. It was not wrong to show him some respect, even though he had caused the fall of the lord of the underworld. That didn't stop Yi Qianqian from killing him with her own hands. That's right, seniority is probably all that's left, Emperor Hades said. What a pity. You are a good seedling, but you will die here today, Emperor Hades said indifferently. There was no murderous intent in his words. However, neither Yi Qianqian nor Yi Mo doubted the confidence in his words. The underworld and the underworld kingdom were already at each other's throats. There was no possibility of reconciliation. The underworld kingdom wouldn't be at ease with the underworld, and the underworld wouldn't be willing to fall behind. Whether or not I die today is not up to you, uncle. One day, I will definitely pay you a visit. Yi Qianqian replied in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Her voice was crisp and clear, like a clear spring flowing into the ears. However, the firmness in her words was no less than Emperor Hades. You're a good seedling. What a pity. If I had met you earlier, I would definitely have taken you in as my disciple. Unfortunately, I have to send you into the cycle of reincarnation now. However, I will keep your corpse and bury it in the deepest core of the underworld. After a few million years, your spiritual consciousness will be reborn, and your strength will be mine to use. This was the most frightening aspect of the underworld kingdom. For other forces, their strength would weaken if their experts died one by one. However, the underworld kingdom was different. As long as they buried their corpses, they would crawl out after countless years and reborn their spiritual consciousness. Then, they would become a peerless expert. On top of that, they would constantly collect the corpses of super experts and bury them. If this continued, they would have more and more experts. They were many times more powerful than the inheritances of ordinary emperors. The four-faced underworld lord and the other two were comparable to the Mahasvara. It would be difficult to find more than a few inheritances of ordinary emperors in a sect. However, the underworld kingdom could casually send a few of them to kill Yi Qianqian. Emperor Hades smiled faintly and didn't seem to be angered by Yi Qianqian's words. There was no need to. No one had ever heard of a giant getting angry over quarreling with an ant. If there was no need to, he could just stomp Emperor Hades to death. The hidden king listened from the side. He could feel the terrifying pressure emanating from Emperor Hades' body. He finally understood that although he was a quasi-emperor, there was only one step between a quasi-emperor and an emperor. This step was like the difference between heaven and earth, like the ends of the earth and the ends of the earth. Just a wisp of Emperor Hades' spirit had already caused him to feel so much pressure. How terrifying would it be if his true body had descended? Then, Emperor Hades turned to Yi Qianqian. There was a murderous look in his eyes as he said, "You must be the one who forced them to summon me. You should be thankful that my true body is still in a deep slumber. Otherwise, my true body would have torn through space and appeared here." Only then did Yi Qianqian realize that Emperor Hades' true body was still in a deep slumber. Otherwise, with the power of an emperor, it would have been a piece of cake for him to tear through space and appear here. However, he was even more excited in his heart. Although this was not the first time he saw a monarch, regardless of whether it was a demon monarch or a devil monarch, they all had their own style and were different. However, they were all monarchs who had fallen, and this was a monarch who was still alive. He might be the only monarch in the entire universe who was still alive. Senior, there's no need to scare us. If your true body could still appear, why wouldn't it? You must have sustained injuries from your battle with the master of the underworld. You still haven't recovered, Yi Shiwen said faintly. He could see that Emperor Hades was trying to scare them so that he could subdue them without a fight. If it was someone else, this might have been effective. Who wouldn't be afraid when facing an Emperor Hades? However, Yi Shiwen wasn't an ordinary person. This wasn't the first time he had seen an Emperor Hades. It was impossible to scare him. Smart? You are indeed a smart person. Emperor Hades smiled slightly. However, smart people often die faster. Looking at your age, you should be a few thousand years old. It's not easy for you to cultivate to this level. You are indeed a rare talent. I'll kill you and bury you. After a few million years, we will have another underworld lord. Ha 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 ha, our underworld kingdom is full of talents. Death is eternal. Embracing death is the wisest choice. You want me to be the underworld lord of your underworld kingdom? That depends on whether you have the ability. Yi Shiwen said with a cold smile. Cut the crap. If you have the confidence to take me down, then there's no need for so much nonsense. If your true body had come today, I would have turned around and left without a second word. However, you want to suppress me with just a wisp of your spirit? How is that possible? Emperor Hades made his move as soon as Yi Shiwen finished speaking. At this moment, a pure power of death rolled out from his body. It was vast and mighty, filling up the heavens and earth. Suddenly, a palm came crashing down towards Yi Shiwen. Immediately, the palm came crashing down, and a vast power surged out. That overwhelming power instantly pressed down, and the aura shield around Yi Shiwen's body instantly produced a violent turbulence, as if it was caught by a big hand on the spot, as if it would be broken in the next second. Under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen let out a long roar, and the aura around his body shot up into the sky. He instantly broke free from Emperor Hades' terrifying pressure. Good move. This is the first time I'm fighting an Emperor Hades. Yi Shiwen roared again and again as he shot into the sky. In an instant, he formed a sky-flipping seal and smashed it towards Emperor Hades. Sky-flipping seal. Even I have only heard of such an ancient technique. I have never been able to cultivate it. To think that you were able to obtain it. You are indeed a person of great fortune. Emperor Hades' palm struck out with a terrifying power of death, scattering Yi Shiwen's sky-flipping seal. His expression was calm, but there was a hint of curiosity in it. As the ruler of the Dark Kingdom, his strength was naturally earth-shattering. Most importantly, he had learned many cultivation methods from those experts who had been resurrected. These completely different cultivation methods represented completely different great Daos. He had integrated all of them into his own martial arts, making him even more powerful. However, there were also some ancient methods that he hadn't been able to learn. He had heard of the sky-flipping seal before. It was created by an extremely powerful expert, but he had no chance to learn it. At this moment, he was actually a little excited. As long as he could kill Yi Shiwen, he would have the opportunity to learn the sky-flipping seal. Chapter 2886. With his cultivation and knowledge, ordinary martial arts naturally wouldn't be able to move him. In fact, he could even see through it with a single glance. It wouldn't be too difficult for him to learn most of it. However, there were some martial arts that couldn't be learned with a single glance. Speaking of which, he wasn't interested in martial arts that could be learned with a single glance. Boom! Ming-Di attacked once again. As soon as he attacked, a death word formed in the sky and blasted towards Yi Shiwen. This death word was enough to explain everything. No one knew why this word was so powerful, especially when it was in the hands of Ming-Di. It wasn't an ancient word that contained innate power. It was just a death word that he had casually condensed and possessed unimaginable power. What a good Ming-Di! Yi Shiwen was excited. Ming-Di's understanding of death far surpassed that of any expert that Yi Shiwen had seen before. It was unimaginably powerful. Yi Shiwen leaped into the sky and punched out. A demon word formed in front of him. In an instant, it seemed to transform into a monstrous demon that clawed at the death word. Bang! The death Word didn't even have the chance to display its true power before it was torn apart by the monstrous demon formed by the demon Word. The demon Word seemed to have transformed into a shocking demonic land. It turned the entire sky into a demonic realm. With this demon Word as the center, the demonic realm grew and expanded at an alarming rate. Even Ming-Di was moved when he saw this demon Word. He didn't expect that this demon Word would appear in Yi Shiwen's hands. This is the demon Word of the original demon race. I didn't expect it to be in your hands. It seems that many unknown things have happened during my slumber. Ming-Di looked at Yi Shiwen. But now, this demon Word will belong to me. Even with Ming-Di's experience and cultivation, he was happy about this. It was obvious that these things were very precious, even to an Emperor Lord. It wasn't easy for them to obtain them. He could imagine that Yi Shiwen must have had many fortuitous encounters to be able to cultivate to this level in just a few thousand years. Not to mention, he could even obtain Dao tools. The Underworld Kingdom had been searching for experts in Dao tools for so many years. However, they hadn't gained much. There are still many things you don't know. Yi Shiwen sneered. After absorbing a part of the Devil Monarch's cultivation and insights, his control over the Devil Word had reached a higher level. Now he could use it as if it was his own arm, and he didn't have to worry about it getting out of his control. If you want my devil character, then come and get it if you have the ability. Emperor Hades sneered. He opened his hand, and a huge Hades character appeared in the air. This was his life source, and also the reason why he had become Emperor Hades. This underworld character grew larger and larger. In the void, it directly turned into a piece of underworld soil. As it grew larger and larger, it swept out from the void and contended with the devil world. They were evenly matched and directly collided. Ming-Di, is this all you've got? Let me see the means of an emperor. Yi Shiwen said, Conservation, do you think you'll still be alive if I'm able to truly display the abilities of an emperor? Ming-Di sneered. There's no way these pieces of trash can withstand the Emperor Lord's secret technique. However, it's more than enough to kill you. Kill me? Ha ha ha. You don't even have a real body and you want to kill me? Just wait until I achieve my Dao. I'll make a trip to the Underworld Kingdom sooner or later. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. Make a trip to the Underworld Kingdom? I don't think you'll be able to make it past today. Cut the crap and let's see who's more powerful. Emperor Hades sneered and moved his body slightly. Countless death ripples appeared under his feet and instantly formed a divine formation. The entire divine formation erupted with astonishing power. These divine formations emitted endless power that pierced through the heavens. It was as if they were directly piercing through the long river of history. They were absorbing power from the long river of history and using it to water the current Dao fruit. This was an extremely shocking method and power. Every wisp of death power could shatter the will of countless people. They didn't dare to have the slightest intention of resisting. Even someone like Yi Shiwen, who had a heart as calm as still water and a Dao as solid as a boulder, was shaken for a moment. However, he regained his composure after a moment. But it was also at this moment that Emperor Hades rushed over. He stepped on the divine formation and instantly flashed over. His large hand slapped towards Yi Shiwen. The word death was condensed on his hand. Everywhere it passed, everything withered. He had entered the other end of the world of death. Emperor Hades' battle experience was so rich that it made one's hair stand on end. Yi Shiwen had only been stunned for a moment before Emperor Hades seized the opportunity. He instantly appeared in front of Yi Shiwen, and that terrifying palm strike split the sky apart. Boom! At this critical moment, the demon's wings on Yi Shiwen's back completely protected him. Emperor Hades' astonishing attack could do nothing to Yi Shiwen. He blocked it directly. Boom! The earth-shattering shockwaves spread out in all directions. The entire space let out a creaking sound as if it couldn't withstand this astonishing power and was about to collapse on the spot. The hidden king gritted his teeth. The power in his body was boiling and surging. He was just trying to resist the shockwaves of the battle between the two parties. The shockwaves of the battle made him feel suffocated. At this moment, he realized that they were both quasi-emperors, but the difference in their Tao was huge. Alliance leader, how many benefits did you obtain from inside? You must know that this was the descent of an emperor lord. Although it wasn't his true body, even his primordial spirit was supported by the power of 3 super peak quasi-emperors. Yet Junior Yi was able to fight him barehanded. This is unimaginable. Yi Mo's eyes flashed. Even if he was stronger than the 4-faced underworld lord and the others, he wasn't that much stronger. At most, there was only a thin line between them. Now that the 3 of them had joined forces, coupled with the descent of Emperor Hades' primordial spirit, their strength had increased exponentially. Yi Shiwen was actually able to fight them barehanded. In such a short period of time, Yi Shiwen must have obtained unimaginable benefits. He was actually able to grow to such an extent. It was no wonder that the 3 great underworld lords, who were able to fight him previously, were beaten like dogs without any ability to retaliate. On the other side, Bummy was screaming and wailing. His injuries hadn't healed yet, and he was hit by this wave of attacks. His injuries worsened instantly, and he hurriedly fled to the other side to escape from the impact of the battle. However, he didn't leave because he wanted to see Yi Shiwen die in the hands of Emperor Hades. Only then would he be able to vent his anger. Moreover, there was still some fear in his heart. Before Yi Shiwen entered the crack and obtained the inheritance, he already felt that he couldn't kill him. Now, Yi Shiwen had the ability to injure him with ease. If he couldn't kill him here, the consequences would be unimaginable. He had to see Yi Shiwen die here with his own eyes. Only then would he feel at ease. Boom! 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 The intense confrontation between the 2 sides completely unfolded in that instant. Every time the attacks and collisions of the 2 sides collided, the world would be turned upside down. Spiritual chi, divine light, and all sorts of laws were wreaking havoc. The entire world seemed to be unable to withstand it, exploding inch by inch as the wind and clouds surged. Emperor Hades' every attack could split the heavens and the earth. A casual strike could pierce through the future. All sorts of attacks were handled with ease by him, and he displayed the supreme demeanor of a peerless emperor. However, every attack was easily neutralized by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's strength was also extremely tyrannical. In the midst of the battle, he activated all sorts of martial arts techniques and unleashed earth-shattering might. He didn't lose to Emperor Hades in the slightest. Moreover, Yi Shiwen's vitality grew stronger as the battle went on. The tyrannical strength of the tyrant body was finally on full display. Facing such a peerless expert, he didn't show any weakness. On the contrary, he grew stronger as the battle went on. The vitality in his body surged like raging waves. After each strike, his chi and blood would grow stronger. At the same time, his understanding of martial arts would also increase, and his strength would also grow stronger. The more Yi Shiwen fought, the stronger he became. 3 underworld lords and Emperor Hades' spirit. It wasn't a matter of 1 + 1 + 1 is equal to 3. It was far greater than 3. Yi Shiwen had to fight against several people at the same time. At this time, Yi Shiwen's strength was completely unleashed. The more he fought, the stronger he became. Gradually, the 2 sides went from being evenly matched to Yi Shiwen gaining the upper hand. Emperor Hades watched carefully. Yi Shiwen laughed heartily and punched out. It turned into the 6 paths of reincarnation and blasted towards Emperor Hades. Emperor Hades smiled and casually broke through Yi Shiwen's attack. However, his expression changed immediately. He realized that Yi Shiwen's attacks were endless. This was definitely not the only attack. It was endless. There was softness in the hardness. Yi Shiwen used 10% of his strength, but left 20% of it. It was endless and layered on top of each other. It was a set of extremely hard and fierce fist techniques, but it had such softness in it. This was clearly Yi Shiwen's comprehension of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist to the extreme. It was a realm of softness in the hardness. Naturally, it was because he had obtained a portion of the demon monarch's inheritance. His understanding of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist had reached a new level. He had already reached the extreme of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Later on, he had comprehended the Tao of time. He had walked his own path of changing between slow and fast. This time, he had completely integrated the Tao of hard and soft into it. Yi Shiwen had long understood the Tao of hard and soft. However, it wasn't easy to evolve a peerless fist technique like the 6 paths of reincarnation fist into a whole new form. Previously, he had relied on the time robe for the Tao of time. This time, he had borrowed the power of the demon monarch to reach a new level. He hadn't used it before because he wanted to numb Emperor Hades. Now he was taking advantage of this opportunity. Chapter 2887. Holding back in front of an invincible expert like Ming Di was not something an ordinary person could do. You still had to trick up your sleeve. Ming Di had never imagined that Yi Shiwen would dare to hold back against him during their battle. However, it was already too late for him to react at this time. Yi Shiwen's superimposed fist force instantly broke through his defense, and when he was defenseless, it blasted into his body in one fell swoop, not giving him any chance to breathe. Kacha! A huge hole appeared in his defenses. It was on the verge of collapsing as Yi Shiwen punched through it. This was the first time Yi Shiwen had managed to punch through his defenses. Yi Shiwen's terrifying punches were relentless as they landed on Ming Di's body. Ming Di retreated again and again. This was the first time he had been pushed back by Yi Shiwen. Only then did he manage to neutralize the terrifying power of Yi Shiwen's fist. A rare look of shock and anger appeared on his face. Originally, this would have been impossible for him. With his strength, such a situation should have been impossible. Yi Shiwen, are you courting death? Ming Di roared in anger. At this point, his anger had reached a boiling point. He grabbed at the void with his hand, and the gigantic devil battleship was pulled over and smashed towards Yi Shiwen. Boundless divine light erupted from the battleship and shrouded Yi Shiwen, intending to kill him in an instant. Watch out! Hidden King Yi Mo and the others cried out in alarm. Yi Qianqian, in particular, flew out to help Yi Shiwen block the attack of the devil warship. The four-faced underworld lord and the others had no way of controlling the devil warship. They could only rely on the soldiers of the underworld kingdom to move it. But in the hands of Ming Di, there was no such problem. He could unleash the full power of the devil warship with a wave of his hand. It was said that this was a terrifying warship that could sink a world with a single blow. Yi Shiwen roared but did not retreat. The Avicii sword flew over first, followed by the time robe. In the blink of an eye, they had already arrived on Yi Shiwen's body. Break for me! Yi Shiwen's sword slashed down on the incoming devil warship. The sword radiance from the slash pierced through the heavens as though it had crossed half the universe. Rumble! At this moment, the shocking collision between the Tao weapons had completely erupted. The resulting shock waves swept out in all directions. Yi Qianqian, Yi Mo, the Hidden King, and Ing Bummy were all blown away. That terrifying power annihilated countless atoms, forming a series of shocking explosions. Ing Bummy, in particular, screamed miserably as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He was already injured to begin with, and now he was even more injured. It was a tragic sight. It was just the aftermath of an explosion, but it already had such astonishing power. It made him even more terrified. He didn't expect that the battle between the two sides could be so intense. It was many times more intense than when he was fighting with him. With two Tao weapons in hand, Yi Shiwen was naturally unparalleled and invincible. No quasi-emperor would be a match for him. However, he was still a genuine emperor lord. Although the devil warship in Ming Di's hands was not a complete version of a Tao weapon, he was still an emperor lord. He could activate the power of a Tao weapon to an astonishing level. This was something that Yi Shiwen could not compare to. Hence, he was not at a disadvantage when facing the two Tao weapons in Yi Shiwen's hands. However, the relaxed expression on his face had disappeared. There was only a solemn expression on his face. When facing Yi Shiwen, he actually did not manage to gain a decent advantage. To him, this was a humiliation, a huge humiliation. Boom! 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 The shocking battle continued. no one dared to approach. Ordinary quasi-emperors would be instantly killed if they went in. Naturally, no one dared to go in casually. In the middle, the battle between the werewolves was too fast. There was no way they could intervene. This is interesting. As expected of Ming Di, Yi Shiwen's laughter rang out. He closed in on Ming Di again and again, continuously launching attacks at him. Ingbumya almost fainted. Yi Shiwen had dared to fight with Ming Di, and he wasn't at a disadvantage at all. He could even find the time to speak during the fight. This was unimaginable to him. If he were in Ming Di's shoes, he wouldn't be able to do this. You still want to be so arrogant? Ming Di also spoke. There was a hint of anger in his voice. He no longer had the carefree demeanor from before. So, what if I'm arrogant? You still want to act tough? Have a taste of my sword, Yi Shiwen said nonchalantly. He immediately moved. The sole of his foot shook in the air. Suddenly, the entire space seemed to be trampled by a ferocious beast. Countless spiritual energies were struck together. Countless pores on his body were absorbing these spiritual energies. He was ready in an instant. He rushed in front of Ming Di and slashed down with his sword fiercely. Boom! As expected, the sword slashed onto the giant devil warship. The resulting shockwave and explosion caused the netherworld soldiers on the warship to suffer heavy casualties. Originally, they had been hiding in the space within the giant devil warship, which was the ancestral land of the devil race. It was heavily fortified and ordinary collisions could not be felt. However, collisions at the level of Dao treasures were completely different. Within the giant devil ship, many of the Netherworld Kingdom soldiers who were sitting cross-legged exploded. Almost all of them were killed in an instant. Under such continuous collisions, almost all of the Nether Kingdom soldiers were dead. Although they were deities and could be reborn again and again, there was still a limit. If even their primordial spirits were shattered, then there was no way for them to be resurrected. Again, the sword didn't hit Yi Shiwen, and immediately followed up with another slash. Sword after sword, he didn't give Ming Di a chance to catch his breath. Unlike Ming Di, Yi Shiwen had both the Avicii sword and the time robe. He could attack and defend at the same time, so he didn't have to worry about his own safety and could attack freely. Ming Di, on the other hand, was different. He didn't have any defensive Dao treasures. The only reason he was able to hold on until now was because his understanding of the great Dao was above Yi Shiwen's. Every bit of strength he used was much more efficient than Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's fighting style was completely a kind of rude and unreasonable fighting style for him. There was no method at all. He just relied on his tyrannical martial power and tyrannical tyrant body to forcefully eat the opponent, and forcibly bring the opponent into his own orbit. In this aspect, Ming Di couldn't compare to Yi Shiwen. He couldn't help but think to himself that if his real body was here, he would have killed Yi Shiwen long ago. Why did he have to be forced to this extent? His fear of Yi Shiwen had reached its peak. However, a late-stage quasi-emperor was able to force him to this extent. In the future, Yi Shiwen might become a great threat and a great enemy. Bang! 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 The series of exchanges was so fast that no one could see clearly what was going on. However, they could see that Ming Di was constantly being pushed back by Yi Shiwen. The number of exchanges between the two of them in the void increased, and the space that Ming Di could move in became smaller and smaller. He was being forced into a corner by Yi Shiwen. Is he really going to kill an emperor? Ingbu Mie's eyes widened in disbelief. Although this was only the primordial spirit of an emperor, it was already something unimaginable to him. Even someone as daring as him wouldn't dare to imagine such a thing. It was simply unrealistic. So what if he killed the primordial spirit? When the true body of an emperor appeared, it would still be killed in a matter of minutes. Killing an emperor was a disgraceful thing. It was better to leave it to the emperor himself. In the distant past, when many emperors were in power, this kind of thing was taboo. It was disgraceful and disgraceful. Those below the emperor level shouldn't even think about it, whether they could do it or not. Even if they were from the emperor lineage, no one would be able to protect them if they dared to have such thoughts. This was the tacit understanding of all the emperors. It was just like how the gods were disgusted by the so-called god-slayers of the mortals. This was because these ants that they thought would never be a threat to them actually had the ability to threaten them. Wasn't this the biggest problem? This was simply defying the rules. Even in this era where there were no emperors, this was still an unimaginable thing. Even a peak emperor like him wouldn't dare to think about it, let alone an ordinary person. Watch me destroy you. Suddenly, while Bumye was still in shock, Yi Shiwen had already turned the craziest thing in his imagination into reality. Destroy! Boom! There was a loud explosion as Yi Shiwen's sword slammed into the devil battleship in Ming Di's hands. The intense collision even caused time to stop. It was as if everything had frozen in an instant. Following that, there was another deafening roar. The devil warship in Ming Di's hand buzzed loudly, sounding like a huge bell. Then, it flew out of Ming Di's hand and was sent flying. Ming Di roared again and again as he retreated. He continued to unleash powerful attacks to obstruct Yi Shiwen's attacks and buy time for him to retreat. He did not expect Yi Shiwen's sword to be so powerful that it could knock the demonic warship out of his hands. How could Yi Shiwen let go of this opportunity? The demon wings on his back flapped continuously as he charged forward. His sword slashed through Ming Di's defenses and pierced into his body. Chapter 2888. Yi Shiwen's sword pierced through Ming Di. The surging power of the sword tore open the wound. Ming Di struggled to pull out Yi Shiwen's sword. But how could Yi Shiwen give him the chance to do so? The sword stabbed down viciously, not giving Ming Di a chance to breathe. Ah! Ming Di roared in anger. He felt as if all the strength in his body was being sucked away. This was something he had never experienced before. He couldn't even imagine it. But no matter how much he roared, it was useless. The Avicii sword was still sucking away his life force. No, it should be said that it was sucking away the life force of the 3 underworld lords that he had possessed. He didn't really care whether these underworld lords died or not. At most, they were just a few of his subordinates. To put it bluntly, he could have as many of these dogs as he wanted. Because of the special characteristics of their techniques, they were rare experts to other forces. But in the Netherworld Kingdom, they were nothing. After all, he didn't need to nurture them himself. He just needed to find the corpses of these experts and use a secret technique to bury them. Then, they would become his people. But what he cared about was that he had been tricked by a junior and died at the hands of a junior. Damned human, you will regret this. My true body will awaken soon. You will have to face the fear of death forever. Ming Di roared. If you have the ability, why don't you awaken your true body now? Yi Shiwen sneered. If Ming Di's true body could awaken so easily, it wouldn't have been in a deep slumber for so long. It must have paid a terrible price and still hadn't recovered. Besides, I will make a trip to the Netherworld Kingdom sooner or later. Just wait and see. The light in Ming Di's eyes gradually faded. His entire body suddenly dissipated into a sky full of light. Even the 3 underworld lords disappeared without a trace. Yi Shiwen, this emperor spirit is not bad. Absorb more of this, and I will become stronger. The voice of the Avicii sword spirit came from within the Avicii sword. Yi Shiwen smiled bitterly. How could he have so many emperor spirit to help him? However, this Empyrean lord's essence spirit was harder to deal with than he had imagined. If not for the fact that he had a Dao artifact today, he might really have been able to turn the tables. Fortunately, he had gotten rid of Ming Di. He didn't take Ming Di's threat to heart. The emperor had spoken very quickly. Only the heavens knew when he would say that. Moreover, the emperor had been severely injured and had to hibernate until now. So what if he woke up? With 2 Dao treasures in hand, he was confident that he would be able to protect himself. Of course, it was only limited to self-preservation. It was also possible that he would be chased all over the world. However, he already had too many debts to worry about. He already had the threat of the rebellious emperor who could become an emperor at any time. Another threat didn't seem so hard to accept. However, this matter also made him realize that he had to speed up and improve. Now, He had directly rushed from the middle stage of the quasi-emperor to the peak of the late-stage quasi-emperor. Moreover, because of the Demon King's gift, he had saved countless years of time. He didn't need to accumulate anymore. He could consider attacking the peak of the quasi-emperor again. Although his current combat strength had reached the peak of the quasi-emperor level in one go and was even the strongest person below the emperor, he was not a peak quasi-emperor after all. He couldn't reach the peak of the quasi-emperor realm in one go and attack the emperor realm in one go. When he reached that realm, he really had to walk his own path. He was different from his predecessors. His predecessors had a lot of time for them to cultivate. However, he didn't have much time even if he added up all the time he had. Suddenly, a spatial fluctuation came from the side. It was Ing Bummy who had torn the space and wanted to escape. However, how could Yi Shiwen give him such a chance? He almost immediately chased after him. His hands abruptly tore the sky apart. Ing Bummy's figure was revealed. When he saw that the dimension space had suddenly been torn apart, he was so scared that his soul almost left his body. What kind of joke was this? This was a guy who dared to kill the primordial spirit of a ruler. How could he not be afraid? However, it was useless even if he wanted to escape now. Yi Shiwen chased after him and smashed the sky-flipping seal. It was earth-shattering. Bang! Ing Bummy instantly screamed in pain. His body was directly torn apart in mid-air. After wearing the time robe, Yi Shiwen's strength was not just a little bit stronger. Originally, he could injure Ing Bummy severely. Now, he caused the severely injured Ing Bummy to die tragically. After killing Ing Bumye, Yi Shiwen finally had the time to look at the huge devil ship. That huge ship was constantly bursting with dazzling lights. The sky was filled with rainbow-colored light that was fluttering in the sky. However, it was being restrained by Yi Shiwen. Hurry up and help me. It won't be easy for me to suppress it alone. Yi hurriedly complained. Yi Shiwen quickly smiled and stretched out his hand. With the power of time, he suppressed the giant devil ship. However, Yi Shiwen did not intend to keep this giant devil ship for himself. He intended to leave it for Yi Qianqian to use. Although Yi Qianqian had obtained the inheritance of the Underworld Lord, she did not seem to have obtained a Dao tool. In this day and age, it was too unsafe to not have one or two Dao tools to protect oneself. It was just like Yi Shiwen. He was already very strong without a Dao tool. However, with a Dao tool, his combat strength had increased by several levels. It was completely different. With a Dao tool in hand, unless an emperor came personally, he would not be afraid. It was different from before. After his strength had increased by another realm, his combat strength had increased by several times. It was completely different. Yi Shiwen put away the giant devil ship after he had sealed it. He wanted to refine the giant devil ship by himself before handing it over to Yi Qianqian. Otherwise, it would be difficult for Yi Qianqian to suppress a Dao tool with her current strength. In this world, people like Yi Shiwen who had obtained Dao tools were very rare. Most of them had obtained them from inheritances. It was very difficult for an ordinary peak quasi-emperor to subdue a Dao tool, especially a Dao tool that was undamaged. Once it awakened its tool's spirit, it would be even stronger than a peak quasi-emperor. Yi Shiwen, you are quite fierce. Yi flew to Yi Shiwen's side. He looked at Yi Shiwen with a bit of astonishment. It seemed that he had not expected that Yi Shiwen would actually slaughter the spirit of Ming Di. However, you have slaughtered the spirit of Ming Di. He will not let this matter rest. He will certainly find trouble with you when the time comes. Let him find trouble with me. When the time comes, I will deal with him when the time comes. You saw the situation just now. I have no choice but to slaughter him. Yi Shiwen said, that is true. Yi nodded and said, in the situation just now, if he did not kill the opponent, he would be killed. Moreover, Ming Di was seriously injured by the Lord of Underworld. He will not be able to come out for a while. So, there is nothing to be afraid of? Yi Shiwen said, what you said is not unreasonable. Yi said, on the other hand, the Hidden King was completely numb. It seemed that he had just recovered from the fact that Yi Shiwen had killed Ming Di. It was like a miracle that a mortal could kill a god. In fact, it was even more shocking than that. Even the spirit of an emperor was a great deterrent to him. However, Yi Shiwen was able to kill him. How tyrannical was Yi Shiwen? All right, since we have obtained the inheritance here, let's go and get rid of the real threat, Yi Shiwen said after he told Yi Mo about the final disappearance of the Demon King. Yi Mo looked somewhat uncomfortable, although he had already guessed it. But when Yi Shiwen told him the truth, he still felt his heart twitching. He had followed the Devil King for a lifetime, and the most glorious period of his life was when he followed the Devil King. But now, the Devil King was completely dead, and an era had come to an end. He looked at Yi Shiwen again. Could this be the beginning of a new era? Let's go. We must hurry up. It will be bad if he escapes. Yi Mo said, when the time comes, I will help you block the great carefree heaven, and you kill that annoying guy. All right. It was much easier to cross the sea again. Yi Shiwen directly used the giant devil ship to cross the Sea of Death. Previously, Immortal and the others had relied on the giant devil ship to cross the Sea of Death. Although the Sea of Death was terrifying, there was no way to cross it with a Dao tool. Soon, Yi Shiwen found Venerable Evil Demon who was waiting there. You are back. Venerable Evil Demon was a bit surprised. He hadn't expected that Yi Shiwen would come back so soon. It was even shorter than the shortest time he had expected. Well, now take us to the location of the Celestial Race's people. This time I want to get rid of them in one go. Yi Shiwen nodded. He didn't say anything and converged his aura. Venerable Evil Demon obviously didn't know that Yi Shiwen had made a big breakthrough in this short period of time. He had advanced by leaps and bounds. All right, please come with me. Venerable Evil Demon's face revealed a pleasantly surprised look. Venerable Evil Demon led the way in front. Yi Shiwen and the others quickly escaped into the layers of space. Yi Shiwen, I still think that this guy is a bit strange. He's not reliable. Yi Mo said, what are you afraid of? If this guy dares to have any disloyalty, then we can just kill him. We can also save a divine material. Yi Shiwen said, what you said is true. Yi Mo nodded. He didn't oppose this time. His strength couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as before after he had obtained the Devil King's inheritance. It might have been difficult to deal with Venerable Evil Demon before, but now it was as Yi Shiwen had said. If this guy dared to come up with any tricks, then he would kill him. Moreover, Yi Shiwen was here, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Chapter 2889. Venerable Evil Demon led Yi Shiwen and the others through the layers of space in an instant. They continued to advance towards the depths of the abyss. All kinds of harsh environments passed by their ears. In this abyss, there were all kinds of extremely harsh and extreme environments. It was simply not suitable for the survival of ordinary creatures. Even a quasi-emperor level expert would go crazy if he was trapped here all year round. This was the most terrifying part. The result of a long-term subtle influence was something that even a quasi-emperor could not accept. Suddenly, Venerable Evil Demon stopped. Yi Shiwen and the others also stopped. Venerable Evil Demon, what is this place? It shouldn't be the place where the Inverse Emperor is doing closed-door training, right? Yi Shiwen asked coldly. Yi Shiwen, you are really smart. You deserve to have such a great reputation outside. It's a pity that it's already too late. Venerable Evil Demon flashed and appeared thousands of feet away. It's a pity that you are going to die here today. What's wrong? Do you want to deal with me? Yi Shiwen sneered. Do you think you're my match? Yi Shiwen, although I am not your opponent, there are still people who can deal with you. Venerable Evil Demon's expression slightly changed. He was actually looked down upon by Yi Shiwen. He was immediately furious. Don't think that you can get away with it today. I'm a bit curious. What did they use to bribe you to make you agree to betray me? I've given you a divine object. I just want to see what they gave you to make you feel that it's worth it to exchange your life for it. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but sneer. Lord Evil Demon suddenly felt a bit strange. They had obviously been led into a trap, but Yi Shiwen wasn't nervous at all. Even the three people behind him weren't nervous in the slightest. This wasn't an issue of psychological quality. They were clearly fearless, especially the Hidden King, who was the weakest among them, did not look worried at all. He could not imagine how relaxed the hidden king was now. What a joke. Yi Shiwen was someone who could even kill an emperor, let alone a mere venerable evil demon. If he did not betray Yi Shiwen, then it would be fine. But now he had actually betrayed Yi Shiwen. Wasn't that courting death? Although it was very likely that they had been lured into an encirclement, could it be more dangerous than being surrounded by the people of the Netherworld? After what had happened before, he didn't think there was anything wrong with what was happening now. He didn't even think it was trouble. He could only use one word to sum up venerable evil demon's actions. He was courting death. TSK so funny. Yimo couldn't help but sneer. This venerable fiend was really courting death. The evil venerable's expression changed. He said, "You don't need to bluff. It's useless. Today is the day you die." Bang! Just as he finished speaking, he saw that a hand had appeared in his chest out of nowhere, directly piercing through his chest. Blood suddenly spurted out, flesh and blood collapsed, and bone fragments swirled in the air. This golden blood flowed from the corner of venerable evil demon's mouth. He couldn't believe that he was actually attacked. A single strike pierced through his chest. He didn't even see it, and he didn't even have time to react. Pooh! He finally couldn't take it anymore. He felt a sweet taste in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. It sprayed all over the sky. Venerable fiend clutched his chest, trying to stop the blood from flowing out. However, his life force seemed to be being devoured by a nameless monster. It was still rapidly flowing away. He hurriedly operated his healing technique, but it was useless. He could only slow down the loss of his life force. This feeling made him feel terrified. Once his life force was completely drained away, it would be his death. He hastily took out some medicinal pills and swallowed them. These medicinal pills were very precious to him. He wouldn't take them unless it was a critical moment. This was because this place was different from the outside world. In the outside world, many precious medicinal ingredients were not difficult to find. In fact, they could be easily found. But in here, the living environment was extremely harsh. Even a quasi-emperor would find it difficult to survive, not to mention the existence of medicinal ingredients and divine materials. Because of this, medicinal pills had become extremely rare. Almost all of them were brought in from the outside world. They wouldn't choose to take them unless it was a critical moment. He couldn't care so much now. He had a feeling that he would die if he didn't use them at this time. This feeling of his vitality rapidly flowing away almost drove him crazy. He didn't know how many years he hadn't felt like this. His life was eternal since he had reached the Tao realm, so he couldn't feel any loss of vitality. But now, it seemed as if the frozen time had suddenly flowed and was reflected in his body. His face exposed a look of fear. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? He only had enough time to see a big hand penetrate his chest. However, he didn't have enough time to see who had done it. His eyes were firmly fixed on the people in front of him. One of them must have done it. No, it must have been Yi Shiwen who had done it. This was the most likely scenario among these people. However, he didn't dare to have the slightest bit of resentment in his eyes at this time. There was only endless fear in his eyes. His strength was close to the peak of the quasi-emperor realm, but he had been seriously injured in one move. Let alone fighting back, he didn't even know who had done it. So, how could he not feel fear in his heart? You're asking for it. Yi Shiwen sneered. He was the one who had attacked just now. In his opinion, this evil lord had dared to betray him. So, he should be prepared to die. How is it? Are you willing to tell me now? What did those people pay you? Is it worth your betrayal? Could it be that you want to watch me die without doing anything? Hurry up and activate the Great Formation. Kill him. I've already lured him into the formation. Suddenly, the evil lord shouted. He didn't care about his demeanor anymore. He was afraid of Yi Shiwen. He was so afraid that he couldn't delay for even a moment. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire spell formation rumbled and started operating. The sky and earth changed. In an instant, the power of the heavens was swallowed up, forming an endless amount of energy that was boiling in the void. Yi Shiwen instantly felt a powerful force projecting down through the entire formation. It was heading towards him to strangle him. However, Yi Shiwen slightly operated his martial power. He was able to deflect this force. However, Yin King and Yi Qianqian were starting to feel a little strenuous. The entire principle seemed to have become the helper of the formation. It was helping him to strangle the people in the formation. However, he didn't wait for Yi Shiwen to investigate further. Suddenly, the demon lord screamed. His entire body's flesh and blood began to collapse under the influence of an inexplicable force. In fact, even he was on the verge of collapse under the power of the Matrix. Why? Didn't we agree? Didn't we agree that as long as I brought them in, you wouldn't kill me, since this is the formation's core? Venerable evil demon screamed again and again as he activated the Zhen method. His strength shouldn't have been so quickly strangled by the power of the Zhen method. In fact, this was just the beginning. However, he had been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen a moment ago, so he still hadn't been able to control the injuries on his body. This had completely broken the internal balance of his body, causing his injuries to instantly worsen. His body began to collapse inch by inch. Idiot! Who do you think you are? You actually dare to bargain with us? Being our slave is already a supreme honor for you, but you actually dare to threaten us. If it wasn't for the fact that you still have some use, I would have killed you right there, and then. A cold voice came from within. Yi Shiwen was happy when he heard this. Who else could this person be other than the great freedom heavens? It seemed that the evil lord had wanted to extort the celestial race after eating Yi Shiwen's benefits. Who would have thought that the celestial race would plot against him? He had reaped what he sowed. I know that I was wrong. I know that I was wrong. I'm willing to be your slave. I only ask you to spare my life. Lord Evil Demon screamed unceasingly. At this time, he finally knew fear. He wanted to beg for mercy. He finally understood that whether it was the heavenly race or Yi Shiwen, they weren't easy to deal with. Plotting against them was just courting death. They had been locked up here all year round, so they had almost forgotten how dreadful the people outside were. In particular, they had provoked a group of existences that couldn't be provoked. You're only thinking of becoming our slaves now? It's too late. This great formation is flawless. It doesn't have a formation's core. You will become the nourishment of this great formation along with them. Ha! The great freedom heavens laughed heartily. He was in an extremely carefree mood. He could finally get rid of Yi Shiwen, his mortal enemy. He had this idea after he had received the information from the evil lord. And he had finally realized it. The threat that Yi Shiwen posed to him was too big. In fact, he was even more dreadful than his old opponents like the fiery dragon lord. It wasn't because of his current strength. Rather, it was because of his astonishing growth speed. He would soon grow to a point where even the great freedom heavens wouldn't be able to contain him. The evil lord screamed after an unknown period of time. Then his entire body exploded with a loud bang on the spot. He transformed into a mass of flesh and blood. Then the great formation absorbed his flesh and blood. The entire great formation started to operate faster and faster. And the pressure it exerted was also getting stronger and stronger. Whoosh! 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 Countless divine beams swept across the sky and swept towards Yi Shiwen and the others. This was the true killing move of the entire Great Array. It wanted to kill all of them here. Relying on this insignificant skill, Yi Shiwen sneered, "Watch me break this broken formation." Chapter 2890. Yi Shiwen let out a long roar, and the infinite pain sword in his hand instantly erupted with astonishing power. He infused all of his vitality into it, and directly slashed out. Rumble! The sword light ruthlessly slashed the formation, and countless laws were cut off. The space also collapsed in an instant. The power of the infinite pain sword in Yi Shiwen's hand had directly increased by several levels. A huge hole was pierced through the formation. Not good! A shout came from outside. No one had expected Yi Shiwen to be so fierce. With just one slash, he had broken through the formation that they had meticulously set up. They had originally thought that it would be enough to kill Yi Shiwen, and that the formation alone was enough to completely suppress Yi Shiwen. Strengthen the formation. We must not let him out. Freedom Sky only heard a roar, and the hole that Yi Shiwen had slashed open began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this time, a lot of filthy energy appeared in the sky and began to pollute Yi Shiwen. This filthy energy was directly extracted from the entire abyss by the formation. It was unknown how many years of accumulated negative energy and dark aura had swept out completely at this time. Even a divine king would be completely polluted after coming into contact with such a level of filthy energy. They would either go crazy or die by self-detonation. There was no other outcome. The hidden king, on the other hand, began to feel uncomfortable under the assault of the filthy air. He had to use all of his strength to resist the invasion of this filthy energy. At the same time, when this filthy energy invaded, many demons suddenly appeared in front of them. These were the resentment of the experts who had been affected or fallen here. Now, they had completely turned into demons, and they were demanding the lives of the intruders. This power was extremely terrifying. Only to this extent, Yi Shiwen didn't care. He opened up the domain of the time robe and enveloped everyone. Suddenly, the filthy energy could not invade them. The hidden king couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Among these people, his cultivation was the lowest. Therefore, he was also the one who couldn't bear it the most. He couldn't help but be secretly shocked. Even with his current status, he couldn't withstand the invasion of this filthy energy. If it had been an ordinary divine king, it would have been difficult for him to escape. However, this also made Yi Shiwen even more mysterious and unfathomable. He was unimaginably powerful. Yi Shiwen's body continued to radiate thousands of rays of light. Each ray of light directly annihilated a devil. These were just the resentment of some experts. How could they deal with Yi Shiwen? Yi Shiwen's powerful vitality was enough to kill all of them even if he didn't have the time robe. They weren't a match for him. These filthy auras and devils hadn't even entered Yi Shiwen's body when they were already on the street. The filthy auras also began to burn. The Nanmingli fire seemed to have obtained nourishment, burning fiercely and turning into a sea of fire. The Nanmingli fire was the nemesis of these filthy and dark powers, so it burned them all away. Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid at all. He was just about to brandish the Avicii sword in his hand again when a big gray hand suddenly appeared in the sky. It fiercely pressed down and fiercely grabbed towards Yi Shiwen's head. That terrifying power was almost like the resurrection of an emperor. It contained the aura of the origin. Countless deathly auras and filthy auras condensed in this big hand and bombarded Yi Shiwen. Dao tool. This big hand was a Dao tool. Yi Shiwen immediately reacted. There was actually the aura of an emperor in it. Yi Shiwen immediately reacted. He immediately let out a long roar and rushed up. Many clouds appeared under his feet. It was as if he was stepping on the clouds. He directly punched towards the big gray hand. Boom! An astonishing collision sound was heard. An astonishing divine power of death erupted from the big gray hand. It seemed as if all the laws of death in the world had been mobilized at once. It smashed down, and the world shook along with it. Yi Shiwen didn't use the Avicii sword. However, the time robe on his body wasn't to be outdone. Countless power of time transformed into the divine kingdom of time and contended against the laws of death of the opponent. The world shook along with it. Even the entire Great Formation was shaking. Yi Shiwen, did you think that we wouldn't have made any preparations even though we knew that you had a Dao tool? The complacent voice of Mahesvara came from outside the Great Formation. His words were filled with confidence. Whether he had a Dao artifact or not was a completely different concept. His strength could be said to be able to dominate the myriad of worlds, and he was one of the few top-notch experts below the imperial monarchs. After obtaining a Dao tool, his strength had increased by leaps and bounds. He couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as he was in the past. Suppressing Yi Shiwen wasn't difficult at all. Yi Shiwen, be careful. That's the dark Bodhi divine hand. Yi Mo was experienced and knowledgeable. He immediately recognized the origin of this big gray hand. However, there was still a bit of surprise and uncertainty on his face. Wasn't it rumored that this hand was sealed in the endless void and exiled? Why did it appear here? Yi Shiwen's body trembled slightly. He dispelled the monstrous and terrifying power. The legend of this dark Bodhi divine hand appeared in his mind. According to the legend, this divine hand was a Tao tool belonging to a peerless powerhouse of the heaven race. People called him Holy Master Bodhi. This dark Bodhi divine hand was refined by Holy Master Bodhi. The Bodhi tree itself was very rare in the world. It was one of the few powerful divine trees in the myths and legends. The dark Bodhi tree was even rarer. It was the only one that had existed since the ancient times. After Holy Master Bodhi had obtained his Tao, he had traveled all over the universe to find the seed of the Bodhi tree. Then he had planted it in the dark land using a secret technique. Only then had he harvested the dark Bodhi tree. In the end, he had refined this dark Bodhi divine hand with this dark Bodhi tree. This divine hand was also extremely powerful in the past. It had created an illustrious reputation. It was precisely because of this that the dark Bodhi divine hand was exiled after the experts of the Allied forces had defeated Holy Master Bodhi. Why hadn't they chosen to suppress or refine it? Why had they chosen to exile it and seal it? The reason was too long ago to be investigated. So, what if you have a Tao tool? You still can't escape the fate of defeat today. Yi Shiwen didn't care. He rushed forward again. His whole body turned into a long dragon that soared into the sky. He used his tyrannical body to collide with this formation. The entire formation shook violently under this collision. Even the heaven race outside looked at each other in dismay. They were a little surprised and uncertain. What a joke! This formation could even kill a quasi-emperor directly. Needless to say, its hardness was naturally unimaginable. It had even used a part of the Emperor-Lord level formation to arrange it. Its power was unimaginable. Originally, they had used it to protect themselves. Naturally, it was incomparably hard. Even a quasi-emperor couldn't break it. Yi Shiwen had dared to use his own body to forcefully attack it. He was simply a monster in human skin. These heaven race people still dared to look down on Yi Shiwen. Perhaps they still didn't think that the human race was anything great. However, they didn't dare to look down on the super elites of the human race. Otherwise, they would be humiliating themselves. After all, they had been defeated by Yi Shiwen more than once or twice. Just when Yi Shiwen was about to collide with the formation again, the deathly gray hand slapped down again. Countless laws condensed in an instant. It was like a world. It carried a terrifying power of a world and fiercely bombarded towards Yi Shiwen. "Break for me!" Yi Shiwen roared. He didn't dodge or evade. Instead, he fiercely collided with this huge hand. Heaven and earth were violently colliding with each other. The terrifying power was still spreading. "Now is the time. Yi Shiwen, today will be the day of your death." Suddenly, at this moment, a shocking spear light instantly broke through the void with the power to split the sky. It directly went towards Yi Shiwen's face. This attack had been prepared for a long time. It had the power to split the sky. It had been waiting for a long time. Finally, it made its move. Bang! This attack directly collided 3 inches in front of Yi Shiwen's face. However, it was blocked by a 5-colored magic wall formed by the power of time. The spear light directly pierced through the magic wall. It almost penetrated Yi Shiwen's head. A figure with a somewhat cold smile on his face looked at Yi Shiwen coldly while holding a long spear in his hand. Who else could it be but the sky-splitting spear? The sky-splitting spear shot out at this critical moment. It almost pierced through Yi Shiwen's body and killed him instantly. The situation could be said to be a moment of life and death. "You are really scheming in order to deal with me." Yi Shiwen's fingertips sprang out a shocking sword energy and swept out. It directly chopped down towards the sky-splitting spear. The sky-splitting spear had no choice but to withdraw his long spear to block Yi Shiwen's attack. It's just a coincidence. A figure slowly emerged in the sky. It was the dark Bodhi divine hand in his right hand. Who else could it be but Great Freedom Heaven? "Yi Shiwen, you are not the only one who has made progress during this period of time. Ha ha ha. I finally found the dark Bodhi divine hand, according to the ancient records. I didn't expect that I would be able to use it so soon. Great freedom, Heaven laughed coldly and said. Then his face immediately became serious. However, you are really brave. You actually dared to look for us. He didn't come from the emperor's inheritance. He could be considered to have formed his own bloodline. Therefore, not having a Tao tool had become his fatal weakness. Now, this weakness had been made up for by the dark Bodhi divine hand. With a Tao tool in hand, it would undoubtedly be much easier for him to face Yi Shiwen. He didn't know when Yi Shiwen had become a synonym for extremely troublesome in his heart. Aren't you afraid that your base will be destroyed if you don't stay in the headquarters? Yi Shiwen didn't care. He just said indifferently, they don't have that ability. Great freedom, Heaven said with a smile. Are you trying to stall for time? It's useless. I have already sealed the surrounding area. No one will come to save you. Who said that I'm stalling for time? Yi Shiwen slightly smiled. I'm just calculating when you will die. Chapter 2891. You want me to die? Ha ha ha. You really like to joke. Great freedom, Heaven laughed loudly, as if he had heard the funniest thing in the world. Do you think you can still leave today? He had never really put Yi Shiwen in his heart. Although Yi Shiwen was troublesome in his heart, it was nothing more than troublesome. Mahasvara, why are you wasting time talking nonsense with him? Just kill him. He won't be able to do anything today. A cold female voice came from the void. Accompanied by this cold voice, it was as if the entire universe was frozen. The temperature dropped by hundreds of degrees out of nowhere. A chill ran down everyone's spine. A graceful figure emerged from the sky. She was holding a blue long sword in her hand. The sword was transparent, as if it was made of water. Cold Moon Star King. The Hidden King's complexion also slightly changed. He still had great confidence in Yi Shiwen. However, the person in front of him wasn't an ordinary person. All kinds of experts had emerged from the heavenly race during this period of time. In fact, many experts of the older generation had made a comeback. And this had once again made the world realize how terrifying they were. Among these people, besides Great Freedom Heaven, who had almost made a name for himself as the world's most powerful person, Cold Moon Star King was also one of the most famous ones. In terms of experience and strength, she was not inferior to Great Freedom Heaven. Great Freedom Heaven alone was extremely troublesome with a Taoist instrument. Moreover, there was another terrifying existence who was almost not inferior to him. Cold Moon Star King, even you are here, Yi Shiwen said calmly. I heard that you and the explosive flame Evil King are inseparable. Since you are here, he should be here too. Come out. Haha, that's right. A rough voice came from the void. Then, a man whose whole body seemed to be burning with flames walked out of the void. Although the two of you are said to be not inferior to Great Freedom Heaven, you have rarely fought since you escaped from the sealed place. Most of the time, you have been protecting the rebellious emperor. It seems that the rebellious emperor should be here, Yi Shiwen said. Everyone in the heavenly clan was a little stunned. They didn't expect that Yi Shiwen would still be concerned about whether the rebellious emperor was here or not. Is he crazy? Or did he really think that they were pushovers that he could pinch whenever he wanted? He seemed to be looking down on them. Several people's faces revealed a somewhat unhappy look. They had thought that they would win, so they didn't take it seriously. Who would have thought that they would be looked down upon by Yi Shiwen? Yi Shiwen, I'll help you hold off the explosive flame Evil King and the Cold Moon Star Lord. You take this opportunity to kill the Mahasvara. Yemo said. What? Kill me? Yemo, have you lost your mind? Mahasvara's face darkened when he heard Yemo's words. Yemo, don't think that no one knows about you. I've already looked into it. Aren't you just a Tao artifact spirit? How dare you act so arrogantly in front of me? Mahasvara's tone grew even colder. Originally, everyone didn't pay much attention to Yemo. Therefore, he was quite mysterious in the eyes of many people. However, as the heavenly clan began to pay attention to him, his origin was also found out. But no one knew more specific details, because the number of times Yi Shiwen used the Tianyuan mirror was quite limited. How many things have you secretly ruined in the heavenly clan? Today, you will die just like Yi Shiwen. Mahasvara said, pay attention to the whereabouts of the rebellious emperor. Once you find him, don't let him escape. I will think of a way to break this matrix. You take them out first. This place will soon become a battlefield. It will be dangerous to stay here. Yi Shiwen secretly transmitted his voice to Yi Mo. All right. Yi Mo didn't say anything. In such a battle, he could still be of help. Yi Qianqian was barely able to protect herself. However, the Hidden King couldn't even protect himself. He had originally wanted to help Yi Shiwen. However, since Yi Shiwen didn't need his help, he didn't say anything more. Yi Shiwen didn't want his help. I want to see who will die today. Yi Shiwen sneered. Don't talk nonsense with him. Suddenly, an astonishing spear light shot out from the sky-splitting spear. It suddenly broke the void, but it wasn't aimed at Yi Shiwen. Instead, it was aimed at Yi Qianqian. The 10,000 method roulette on Yi Qianqian's body automatically flew up and blocked this fatal blow. However, her whole body was instantly knocked away. She suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and almost fainted. The sky-splitting spear was a Dao tool. Its full power could be imagined. The quality of the 10,000 method roulette was already the best among the divine tools. There were even some divine materials used to cast Dao tools mixed in it. But now, cracks had appeared all over the 10,000 spell roulette. Sky-splitting spear, you are courting death. Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly turned red. He was instantly furious. The sky-splitting spear was courting death. Even he didn't expect that the first target of the sky-splitting spear wouldn't be him, but Yi Qianqian. In his opinion, his biggest opponent hadn't been dealt with yet. So, the sky-splitting spear shouldn't have had time to deal with others. On the other hand, as long as he was dealt with, the others could be easily dealt with. But who knew that there was still hope? This negligence caused Yi Qianqian to be seriously injured. All of Yi Shiwen's imposing aura instantly erupted. It was as if a giant beast had suddenly broken free from its control and soared into the sky. That powerful, imposing aura was terrifying. This kid has become stronger. Let him die. Freedom, heaven roared. He felt that Yi Shiwen had become stronger. His fear of Yi Shiwen deepened. He hadn't seen Yi Shiwen for a long time, but he had actually improved again. Kill him. I want one of his Dao tools. It just so happens that I still lack a Dao tool to suppress it. Explosive Flame's Savage King laughed loudly. He had taken a fancy to the time magic robe in Yi Shiwen's hands. His defense was relatively weak. If he had the time magic robe, then he wouldn't lack anything. He could attack and defend at the same time. Yes, I want his Avicii sword. With the Avicii sword, I can comprehend the great way within it. Then I might be able to rush to the Emperor realm in one go in the future. The frigid Moon Star Lord said coldly. However, his cold eyes were glowing brightly. That's right. What wishful thinking, Yi Shiwen sneered. Endless aura emanated from his body. At this moment, he was like a king who ruled the world. No matter how much time eroded, it couldn't leave the slightest trace on his body. He was eternal and immortal. There were no disasters or tribulations. Yi Shiwen's amazing understanding of martial arts completely erupted at this moment. It seemed as if he could destroy a world with just a raise of his hand. Over the years, he had advanced step by step from an ordinary disciple of a small world to his current level. He didn't need to fear anyone below the Emperor realm. At this moment, no one could restrain him. Those who came to besiege me today must die. None of you can leave. Yi Shiwen let out a long roar and directly attacked. Countless time powers bloomed around his body and blossomed with amazing divine radiance. It was as if a waterfall was brandishing in the sky. 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and rushed directly in front of the sky splitter. He directly bombarded him with a punch. He still remembered that Yi Qianqian had been seriously injured by the sky splitter. You're courting death. The sky splitter's face revealed a bit of shock and anger. Yi Shiwen clearly didn't take him seriously. He even dared to retaliate against him. He was a dignified Dao tool. In this era where there were no Emperor Realm experts, he was the strongest. How dare he? You're the one who's courting death. Yi Shiwen's punch directly hit the Sky Splitter's face. The terrifying fist energy directly collapsed the void. Yi Shiwen's power spread in all directions at a visible level. The Sky Splitter was originally very angry. However, when Yi Shiwen bombarded him with this punch, he was shocked almost immediately. All the pores on his body closed. It was as if he was being stared at by a fierce beast that had awakened from ancient times. His back was drenched in cold sweat. He felt that even the air in front of him had solidified. He stopped breathing, and his heart had stopped beating in fear. The terrifying force actually broke through his protective aura and directly blew on his face. It seemed as if it was going to directly penetrate his body. The Sky Splitter spear let out an angry roar. At this critical moment, the Sky Splitter spear in his hand flew over to protect his artifact spirit. This sense of danger made the Sky Splitter spear react instinctively almost instantly. Bang! There was a huge explosion in an instant. Yi Shiwen's body was barehanded, but he dared to compete with a Taoist tool. The point of collision between the two sides suddenly erupted with a strong fluctuation of spiritual power. It spread out, and with the two of them as the center, it rolled out in all directions. Wallalala! Everyone could only feel the monstrous waves set off by the fight between the two. However, they couldn't see clearly what was happening inside. That was because the raging tide of energy and the fluctuation of spiritual power had even directly blown away their divine senses. They were almost blown away on the spot. They could only open their heavenly eyes one after another and continue to observe with their heavenly, magical power. However, they saw that the two of them were actually evenly matched. In other words, Yi Shiwen, who was barehanded, was actually evenly matched with the Sky Splitter. He wasn't directly blown away at all. Everyone didn't have time to sigh with Yi Shiwen's amazing move. They saw that Yi Shiwen had once again made an amazing move. His hands directly tore apart the raging tide of spiritual power that was coming towards him. His body took a step forward and directly pressed against the Sky Splitter. He blasted a punch at it. Bang! The Sky Splitter couldn't react in time. The body of the spear was directly blown away. It spouted a mouthful of old blood. Chapter 2892. The blood spurted out by the sky-splitting spear instantly turned into spiritual energy. The sky-splitting spear didn't have a physical body, and the tool spear was also a spiritual body. The blood was also composed of all kinds of pure vitality. Yi Shiwen had severely injured the sky-splitting spear in one blow. Of course, the sky-splitting spear wasn't prepared. However, the main reason was that Yi Shiwen had the strength to injure the Doctrine Tool. He might not be able to destroy the Doctrine Tool's body with his bare hands. However, he had a high chance of success if he dealt with the Tool Spirit. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and chased after the Sky-Splitting Spear's Tool Spirit. He wanted to kill the Sky-Splitting Spear's Tool Spirit in one blow. A Dao Tool didn't have a Tool Spirit. Therefore, it would be impossible for it to display such power unless it fell into the hands of an emperor. Just like Yi Shiwen's time robe, it would be very difficult for it to display enough power to contend against other Dao tools if Yi Shiwen hadn't crazily stimulated it with endless emperor source. Yi Shiwen wasn't an emperor yet. He could only use this method to hurt the sky-splitting spear. Oh no, save the sky-splitting spear! After the initial shock, Great Freedom Heaven and the others instantly understood what Yi Shiwen wanted to do. He wanted to strike while the iron was hot and kill the sky-splitting spear's tool spirit in one blow. At this moment, they didn't have the time to wonder when Yi Shiwen had this ability. The Mahasvara, the Cold Moon Star Lord, and the Explosive Flame Evil King joined hands to launch an earth-shattering attack towards Yi Shiwen. At the same time, their big hands grabbed towards the direction of the sky-splitting spear. They wanted to retrieve the sky-splitting spear. The three of them could be said to be one of the strongest experts below the Emperor, especially Great Freedom Heaven, who was known as the strongest expert below the Emperor. One could imagine how terrifying the power of this joint attack would be. The entire Great Array shook violently wherever it passed. All the space turned into chaos in an instant. Earth, fire, water, and wind condensed. All kinds of law fragments fluttered in the sky and mixed with each other. Endless energy appeared. It was like a magnificent army of thousands of men and horses that rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. Umph! Yi Shiwen immediately condensed a fist and blasted it to meet the attack of the three experts. Boom! The shocking collision occurred in an instant, but before the aftermath of the terrifying explosion could fully permeate, endless time force swept out and turned into a huge vortex that directly absorbed the attack. In an instant, it disappeared without a trace. The attacks of the three experts had also turned invisible with the help of the time robe, so they couldn't really affect Yi Shiwen. The devil wings behind Yi Shiwen flapped unceasingly. In an instant, he flew over, penetrated through the space, and arrived above the sky-splitting spear in an instant. Then he stomped on it. Boom! The sky-splitting spear let out a blood-curdling screech as it was trampled on by Yi Shiwen. Its body was certainly unscathed. However, its exposed tool spirit was trampled on its chest. Its entire body fell from the sky like a meteor and fiercely crashed into the ground. Rumble. The aftermath of the series of explosions was still expanding at an astonishing speed. With the sky-splitting spear as the center, the land within a radius of 1,000 miles was instantly turned into powder, forming a huge crater. 1,000 miles away, there were also all sorts of densely packed cracks that spread in all directions like a spiderweb. The sky-splitting spear, which had already been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen, was now even more injured. However, an even more astonishing scene took place. Yi Shiwen suddenly stretched out his big hand and directly grabbed towards the direction of the sky-splitting spear. Above his big hand, the endless power of time covered it. This power of time protected Yi Shiwen and even allowed him to contend against the Dao tool. He wanted to directly suppress and subdue the sky-splitting spear. "You're courting death!" Great Freedom and the others suddenly roared in anger. In their opinion, Yi Shiwen was simply courting death. He actually dared to attack their Dao tool at this time. "Go kill him!" Great Freedom took the lead and directly used the dark Bodhi divine hand towards Yi Shiwen. After the series of attacks, just now, they naturally understood that Yi Shiwen's strength was beyond doubt. It didn't matter how he had become so powerful. It was meaningless to talk about it now. At this time, they didn't dare to hold back even the slightest bit. At this time, they released all kinds of earth-shattering moves. The dark Bodhi divine hand grew bigger and bigger under the support of countless dark and filthy powers. It formed an unimaginable power and slapped towards Yi Shiwen. Great Freedom's martial power was already extraordinary. Moreover, he was using an amazing divine tool, like the dark Bodhi divine hand. Even Yi Shiwen was very afraid of him. He immediately turned around and blasted the overturning the sky seal. Rumble! Yi Shiwen's overturning the sky seal reversed the power of the world and fiercely collided with the dark Bodhi divine hand. The astonishing waves set off by the explosion were still sweeping in an astonishing manner. However, this didn't affect Yi Shiwen's movements at all. All the attacks and the aftermath of the attacks directly rushed towards the time robe and burst out bursts of tremors. His clothes made a fluttering sound, but he remained majestic and motionless. He was like an ancient sage. His expression wouldn't change even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. "Stop him! Don't let him succeed!" The explosive inferno cruel king roared. He knew that Yi Shiwen couldn't subdue the sky splitter immediately even if he caught it. However, this was simply a humiliation for them. The three of them had joined hands, and Yi Shiwen had still succeeded in subduing it under their noses. It was simply unbearable. The explosive flame, tyrannical king, instantly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. All of his killing moves broke out in a split second, and an endless sea of flames burned directly towards Yi Shiwen. It was as if the sea and the sky were in a line, and the raging waves rushed towards Yi Shiwen. These flames could easily burn an incomparably powerful divine king alive. They had even affected his origin energy. They were simply unimaginably powerful and powerful. On the other side, the cold moon star monarch pinched a seal with both hands, and a monstrous magical power erupted from her body. In an instant, the sky brightened up. If one took a closer look, they would see that countless star projections had appeared in the Great Formation. They had penetrated through the layers of the Great Formation and appeared here. These stars were all the stars in the myriad realms. Under her summons, they had all projected their projections here. Then, the projections of these stars fell down one after another like meteors. They fell down fiercely in an astonishing manner. Countless starlight streaked across the sky and even covered the horizon like a violent storm. Every starlight was a huge divine kingdom. There were countless creatures' wills instilled in them. These countless starlight were countless divine kingdoms colliding with each other at all costs. One could imagine the degree of danger involved. It was simply unimaginably powerful. These two attacks could also be described as earth-shattering. They were both doing their best to stop Yi Shiwen. However, at this moment, Yi Shiwen roared, and the Avicii sword appeared in his hand. He waved out a shocking waterfall, which crossed the sky and instantly split the heaven and earth. Whether it was the explosive flame Evil King's attack or the cold moon star monarch Star Kingdom, they were all annihilated in an instant. Wherever the sword radiance passed, these attacks were completely destroyed. However, Yi Shiwen was still not satisfied. He was still instilling more martial power into his body at an astonishing speed. The sword radiance rose against the wind and rushed up to the sky. In an instant, it pierced through the sky, and a huge hole appeared in the entire Great Formation. Boom! The shocking explosion was still reverberating in all directions at an astonishing speed. The entire sky was violently shaking and trembling. Now, while Yi Mo and the others were still immersed in such a shocking battle, and were trying their best to open up their divine kingdoms to protect themselves from the aftermath of the battle, Yi Shiwen's voice suddenly appeared in their minds. Then, a giant ship descended from the sky. It grew bigger and bigger, and appeared in front of them in an instant. It was the giant devil ship, but a part of it had already been refined by Yi Shiwen. Currently, most of the functions of the giant devil ship could not be used. In fact, it should be said that most of the functions were still in a state of being sealed by Yi Shiwen. In a state where he had not completely refined it, he did not dare to release it casually. Even so, some of the basic functions were already available. Let's go! Yi Mo was the first to react. He remembered what Yi Shiwen had said to him before. He immediately leaped and rushed to the giant devil ship with Yi Qianqian and the Hidden King. Then, the giant devil ship instantly moved and directly submerged into the space. In the next flash, it had already appeared outside the Great Formation. This giant devil ship itself was the lair of the Devil Clan. It carried the Devil Clan through the endless void and wandered in the heavens and the myriad realms. It was best at crossing the void and passing through all kinds of dangerous environments. The big hole that had been created by Yi Shiwen's slash was instantly repaired the moment the giant devil ship penetrated the Great Formation. The entire Great Formation had utilized some of the Emperor-level formations that had been arranged by the Emperor-level formations. So, its recovery ability was unimaginable for other formations. There was only a split second of time, and it would be gone if they missed it. The experts of the celestial race who were outside the Great Formation saw this scene and looked at each other in dismay. The sword had directly pierced through the Great Formation, and several experts of the celestial race hadn't been able to dodge in time. They had been vaporized by the blood-red sword light. However, the giant devil ship had already rushed out before they could recover from their confusion. Well, what's going on? The experts of the celestial race were still in a daze when they saw Yi Mo shouting with a murderous aura, "Kill! Kill them all! Destroy the Great Formation from the outside!" Chapter 2893. Oh no, he has sent him out. Great Freedom's complexion changed as he said. The series of attacks had finally stopped Yi Shiwen from reaching for the sky-splitting spear. However, Yi Shiwen had successfully sent Yi Shiwen out. He believed that it would be very difficult to destroy the entire formation from the inside. After all, it was a part of the formation set up by the Emperor. However, It would be a different story if it was destroyed from the outside. It doesn't matter. We still have experts guarding outside. Don't worry, Cold Moon Star Lord said calmly. It was impossible for the heavenly race to send so few people. There were still some experts outside. Although they were not as strong as the three of them, they were more than enough to deal with Yemo and the others. However, they obviously did not know that Yemo's current strength was not the same as before. Even the three of them might not be able to defeat him, let alone the quasi-emperor experts who were far inferior to him. No matter what, we must kill this boy first. We can't delay any longer, Great Freedom said. He was still worried about the situation outside. Moreover, the situation just now had completely enraged him. He could not wait to cut Yi Shiwen into pieces. Kill him. We must kill him. The sky-splitting spear roared. His voice was hoarse. Blood was still flowing from the corner of his mouth. The blood turned into brilliance and dissipated. The series of attacks just now was so fast and powerful that he felt his whole body trembling. Yi Shiwen's punch had almost shattered his spirit body. It was the first time that he realized how fragile his body was. Although he was a spirit body, it was a Dao Tool spirit body. How could it be the same as an ordinary spirit body? Even a dragon quasi-emperor of the same level might not be as tyrannical as him. However, he was completely vulnerable in front of Yi Shiwen. He felt that he had been too careless. He had used his body to take Yi Shiwen's attack head-on. As a result, he had been seriously injured. He had never been injured to this extent. He was used to living like a prince. He could not wait to cut Yi Shiwen into pieces and let him die without a burial place. Yi Shiwen, it is useless even if you send him out today. It is impossible to destroy the formation. You should give up, Great Freedom said coldly. Destroy the formation? You're thinking too much. I've never thought of destroying the array formation. Even if the array formation interferes with me, it doesn't matter to me. Yi Shiwen faintly smiled. He naturally had absolute confidence in himself. He had even slain the primordial spirit of an imperial emperor, let alone these people. He had sent them out because he was worried about Yi Qianqian. If the Hidden King were to be affected by the shock waves of the battle, he would be used by the other party as a weakness. What? How arrogant! The explosive flame savage king instantly became furious. His eyes had already turned red. He had already formed a personal grudge with Yi Shiwen this time. So, he must kill Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, there would be endless troubles in the future. Yi Shiwen had become so terrifying in such a short time. Wu Fa was imagining how terrifying he would become if he was given more time. No matter what, you won't escape death today. The Great Freedom Angel grabbed out with the dark Bodhi's sacred hand. The hand grew bigger and bigger as the wind blew. It was as if the entire world had been slapped down. The Great Freedom Angel blew out a mouthful of essence chi. Suddenly, the whole world began to spin. It came crashing down. The cold moon star monarch directly pinched a seal. Countless stars with star kingdoms came crashing down. They were no longer illusory. In every holy kingdom, there were countless creatures manifesting. There were deities chanting the Divine Heart Sutra. The power was even more shocking. The explosive flame savage king also turned into countless flaming men in an instant. They formed an army and rushed towards Yi Shiwen in a mighty manner. These flaming men were not ordinary. They were formed by the fusion of his martial will and energy. Each of them could kill a divine king. They were very terrifying. The three of them joined forces and broke out an earth-shattering attack. All of them marched towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen stood in the void. His eyes were cold as he looked at them. He did not move. At this moment, it was as if the whole world had frozen. At this moment, the scene was fixed. Time was a moment, an eternity. Behind Yi Shiwen, the demon wings stretched out. They were like clouds hanging in the sky. They were incomparably huge and instantly protected him. Countless power of time formed a huge holy kingdom with Yi Shiwen as the center. It rolled out in all directions. Buzz! All the attacks rushed in and sank into the holy kingdom of time. However, in an instant, all the attacks were completely annihilated. It should be said that they were completely engulfed. All the martial arts and magic were annihilated. They were buried. All the attacks were disintegrated. The attacks were still bombarding and continuously. However, they could do nothing to Yi Shiwen. He took a step forward. One of his hands blasted out the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. It formed a 6 paths wheel and blasted out. The other hand blasted out the overturning sky seal. These 2 frightening attacks charged towards the descending dark Bodhi sacred palm. Rumble! An astonishing collision unfolded in an instant. That terrifying power swept out in all directions with monstrous magic power and energy. All of a sudden, his offensive was stagnated. Even the power of the great freedom sky and the dark Bodhi sacred hand could not do anything to Yi Shiwen. However, in this moment of stagnation, Yi Shiwen's demon wings had already been unleashed to the limit. He instantly rushed in front of the explosive flame, ruthless king. The Avicii sword appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand. In an instant, an astonishing power erupted. It soared into the sky, pierced through the vault of heaven, and split the vault of heaven into 2 halves. The aura of the Avicii sword was everywhere as it ruthlessly fell down. All of the flame men in front of the explosive flame tyrant king seemed to have felt some kind of terrifying pressure and collapsed on the spot. Even he could feel the aura of death coming towards him. Ever since he had proven his Tao, this kind of feeling had disappeared. No one could threaten his life anymore. But now, he actually felt the same feeling again. It was as if he would die in the next second. His eyes were bloodshot. He felt that he had been forced into a dead end. Fight! The explosive flame, ruthless king roared. His hands gathered into a kingdom of flames on the spot. He displayed the terrifying strength of a peaked quasi-emperor. The divine kingdom of flames instantly expanded and formed a fire character. It pounced towards Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen did not stop. He held the sword of Avicii in his hand and slashed down. Boom! The collision between the 2 erupted with an earth-shattering light. It was eternal. It made people feel as if time was about to stop at this moment. However, this feeling only lasted for a moment. This image that seemed to last for eternity completely collapsed. Yi Shiwen's sword of Avicii completely destroyed the explosive flame, ruthless king's divine kingdom of flames. It instantly cut through his divine kingdom of flames. Then, it directly slashed towards the explosive flame, ruthless king. Pucci! The explosive flame, ruthless king screamed in pain. His whole body was instantly cut in half. Countless laws erupted from both sides of his body. The laws shot out and connected the 2 halves of his body. He wanted to reassemble them. However, how could Yi Shiwen give him another chance? He suddenly slashed down with his sword. The 2 halves of the explosive flame, ruthless king's body that had yet to reassemble were cut open again. His body exploded with a loud bang. Blood splattered and bone fragments flew everywhere. It was as if the explosive flame, ruthless king had been slashed into meat paste. The meat paste wriggled and wanted to continue to escape. It wanted to reassemble its body. However, how could Yi Shiwen give him such a chance? He slashed the meat paste again. Then he pasted another seal character on it. Then he directly grabbed it into the time robe and completely suppressed it with the power of time. Time was too tight. All of this happened in a flash. Although it seemed like a long time, it actually happened in an instant. The explosive flame, ruthless king, was severely injured in an instant. However, Cold Moon Star Lord and Freedom Heaven's attacks had already arrived. They did not allow Yi Shiwen to kill the explosive flame, ruthless king first. Yi Shiwen simply sealed the explosive flame, ruthless king first. It would soon be completely absorbed by the time robe. Rumble! A series of loud explosions were heard. Cold Moon Star Lord and Freedom Heaven's attacks had bombarded Yi Shiwen's divine kingdom of time. Yi Shiwen's divine kingdom of time shook violently, especially the dark Bodhi divine hand. It almost broke his divine kingdom of time. It had clawed through his defensive domain and grabbed Yi Shiwen's body. Not good. How come even the explosive flame, ruthless king, has been sealed? Both of them reacted very quickly. In fact, they had reacted almost as soon as Yi Shiwen attacked the explosive flame, fierce king. However, they were still a bit too slow. The explosive flame Fierce King had already suffered a tragic accident in such a short time. It had been severely injured by Yi Shiwen and then sealed. It doesn't matter. The explosive flame Ruthless King's martial power is profound. How can it be completely refined so easily? Yi Shiwen will have to consume a lot of martial power to suppress the explosive flame Ruthless King. This is our opportunity. Let's take advantage of this opportunity to kill him. Freedom Heaven took the lead and rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Then, he grabbed Yi Shiwen. Bang! Freedom Heaven's dark Bodhi divine hand grabbed Yi Shiwen's body. However, it only left a faint mark on Yi Shiwen's body. It couldn't break through Yi Shiwen's defense. 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Yi Shiwen turned around and bombarded with a punch. The powerful fist vibrated and formed a terrifying shockwave. The punch landed on Freedom Heaven's body. Puff! Freedom Heaven was caught off guard and got hit. He spouted a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. Chapter 2894. If the dark Bodhi divine hand had not blocked most of the attacks, he would have been pierced by Yi Shiwen's punch. Damn it! How could this be? Great Freedom Celestial roared again and again. It was different from what he had expected. Suppressing the explosive flame, Tyrannical King did not consume much of Yi Shiwen's power. He estimated it based on his own situation. If it were him, he would definitely need to consume a lot of power and energy. However, Yi Shiwen's power was much stronger than his. Moreover, he had the help of the Robe of Time. It only took a moment for him to suppress the explosive flame Tyrannical King. Yi Shiwen was about to rush out and severely injure Great Freedom Celestial. On the other side, Cold Moon Star Lord had already rushed over. Or rather, she was too hasty to stop. She rushed over directly. All of her attacks fell on Yi Shiwen. However, she could not even break the Robe of Time that Yi Shiwen was wearing. Bang! The moment when all the attacks touched the Robe of Time, they all turned into brilliant lights and swept in all directions. The star kingdoms that were crashing down from the sky directly collapsed and melted around Yi Shiwen. How could he be so strong? Cold Moon Star Lord suddenly felt a chill. For the first time, her delicate face showed fear. For the first time, a feeling of despair rose up in her. Facing such a monster that she could not break his defense at all. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen could seriously injure her with one blow. How could she not feel a sense of despair? This feeling was like facing the legendary Emperor. No, the Emperor was even more terrifying. He could kill her with one slap. However, at this moment, it did not make any difference to her. Sure enough, Yi Shiwen just turned around and punched. Booms! The terrifying power of the fist brought with it a surge of primal chi. It enveloped the entire world and instantly landed on frigid Moon Star Lord. Bang! There was a loud roar, but Yi Shiwen's fist power did not pierce through Cold Moon Star Lord. At the critical moment, the Sky Splitter Spear crossed the sky and smashed Yi Shiwen's attack into pieces. The mystical spear suddenly appeared in front of Yi Shiwen and Cold Moon Star Lord. Cold Moon Star Lord, I'll leave the rest to you. I was seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. I need to recover first. Help me hold him back. After the spirit of the Sky Splitter finished speaking, the spear flew into Cold Moon Star Lord's hand. Suddenly, Cold Moon Star Lord's aura soared. She was like a deity that had appeared again. Endless spear light burst out of the Sky Splitter and scattered in the world. The frigid Moon Star Lord's eyes turned cold. Her face was covered in frost. With the Tao item in hand, her strength had increased significantly and her confidence had multiplied. Yi Shiwen, today is the day you die, Cold Moon Star Lord said coldly, holding the Sky Splitter and pointing it at Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen didn't feel the slightest bit depressed, even though his attack failed. He just sneered and said, "You are my defeated opponent, and he is my defeated opponent. 2 defeated opponents joining hands. Don't tell me you want to go against the heaven?" Yi Shiwen was not moved at all in the face of such a shocking combination. Yi Shiwen would have been forced to retreat if he had encountered such a combination before he had obtained the Devil King's help. he would have been able to protect himself at most. However, this wasn't a problem for him now. After all, how could they be more powerful than the combination of the three lords of the underworld, the soul of the underworld emperor, and the giant devil ship? After experiencing such a battle, this was just a small matter to him. It was not a big deal at all. Yi Shiwen, don't be too arrogant. If you know what's good for you, let go of the explosive flame, Savage King. Otherwise, you will die without a burial place. Cold Moon Star Lord said coldly. With the Sky Splitter, her confidence was greatly boosted. With the ability to hurt Yi Shiwen, she did not believe that Yi Shiwen could be so strong alone. Die without a burial place? I want to see just who will make who die without a burial ground. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly. He did not care at all. He took a big step forward and rushed to the front of Cold Moon Star Lord. Cold Moon Star Lord roared and rushed forward. The sky-splitting spear in her hand burst with endless cold light. Spear radiance kept bursting out. Every spear radiance could pierce through the world and make the world return to its chaotic state. Earth, fire, water, and wind could be practiced again. Cold Moon Star Lord shouted. Bang! 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 A fierce battle broke out between the two sides. In order to buy time for the weapon spirit of the sky splitting spear to recover, and also to buy time for Freedom Heaven to recover, Cold Moon Star Lord was doing her best. She was burning her mana everywhere. Although doing so would hurt her foundation and would undoubtedly be a huge hindrance to her future cultivation, she had no other choice at this moment. She realized that the man in front of her was not someone that any of them could defeat alone. If she let him attack them one by one, all of them would die today. She had no choice but to fight desperately. However, Yi Shiwen wouldn't give them any chance to breathe. His powerful attacks were breaking out every second. However, Yi Shiwen couldn't get rid of the great Freedom Heaven for a while because Cold Moonstar Lord was holding him back with all her might. Furthermore, the entire formation was attacking Xiao Chun continuously. When the formations that the Sovereign Emperors laid down were unleashed, they still posed some threat to Xiao Chun. He could not ignore them completely. Get out of my way! Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch and directly bombarded the sky-splitting spear. Buzz! The sky-splitter spear rumbled like a huge bell and shook violently. Frigid Moonstar Lord felt a monstrous power wreaking havoc in her palm. Even though the sky-splitter spear was desperately trying to reduce the impact of this power, the remaining power was still terrifying. Bang! Finally, her entire palm could not stand it anymore. It exploded on the spot and turned into a bloody mist. In the eyes of others, Yi Shiwen's strength was truly astonishing. Free strike! Suddenly, the sun, the moon, and the stars around him seemed to be rotating. It seemed as if a force was controlling the universe, rotating the sun and moon. A huge finger fell from the sky and pointed straight at Yi Shiwen's glabella. It seemed as if it wanted to explode him in one breath. It was at this critical juncture that Mahasvara made his move. The power of this attack from the dark Bodhi sacred hand was truly astonishing. Sky-severing finger. Yi Shiwen spat out these words. He then pointed his finger. It seemed as if the entire sky had darkened under this finger. The world and the universe had shrunk and formed a small origin point with his finger as the center. The two fingers collided fiercely. Then, Mahasvara let out a scream of agony as he was sent flying backward like a meteor. A terrifying power flowed through his fingers and into his body, causing it to explode and wreak havoc. He was seriously injured in an instant. This was the Severing Heaven's finger that Yi Shiwen had practiced in the past. The original Severing Heaven's finger naturally didn't have such great power. The Severing Heaven's finger could only intercept a part of the power of heaven for his own use. However, Yi Shiwen could intercept the power of a small world for his own use now. With his current martial Dao cultivation, he could raise the power of the heavenly severing finger to an earth-shattering level in a matter of minutes. This was the principle of understanding one theory, then understanding 100 theories. At this time, Yi Shiwen did not continue to chase Freedom Heaven. Instead, he went after Cold Moonstar Lord, who had just been seriously injured and was running away. He was like a demon god in chaos. Countless terrifying attacks from the spirit designs landed on his body, bursting with dazzling light. However, in reality, they couldn't even break through his basic defense. He caught up with Cold Moonstar Lord in one step and stuck close to her like a shadow. The sky-flipping seal suddenly fell. Bang! Yishuin's sky-flipping seal fell on Cold Moonstar Lord's body. Cold Moonstar Lord felt as if the power of countless worlds exploded in her body. She was seriously injured in an instant. Boom! Then Cold Moonstar Lord seemed to have been hit by a bomb. Her body exploded on the spot and turned into a cloud of blood mist. Then she tried to recover in the distance. Even the sky-severing spear could not catch up. She could only watch Yishuin seriously injure Cold Moonstar Lord. The figure of the Cold Moonstar Lord reappeared in the distance. This time, she no longer had the confidence to attack. Even with the help of the sky-splitting spear, Yishuin was also wearing the time robe. The two sides had completely canceled each other out. At this time, the gap between her and Yishuin's skills was completely revealed. Her eyes flashed with an unimaginable expression. She did not understand why Yishuin, who was not even at the peak of the Emperor-to-be level, could have such terrifying combat power. However, at the moment when she was in a daze of fear, Yishuin had already stepped on the ground and chased after her. In an instant, the spiritual energy between the heavens and the earth surged, as if the heavens and the earth were turning upside down. Yishuin's hands almost instantly cut open the space and chased after her in an instant. Yishuin's speed was so fast that he almost instantly caught up to her side. The overturning the sky seal directly smashed down. The might of the sky-flipping seal seemed to have mobilized all the laws in the world. It turned into a dense net that enveloped Cold Moonstar Lord. Cold Moonstar Lord screamed in pain and was smashed into pieces again. Her body turned into a bloody mist and dissipated in the air. She still wanted to reform, but Yishuin would not give her the chance. He waved the demon summoning banner and swallowed her. He sealed her with the word seal and turned her into food for the demon summoning banner. Immediately, many demon kings began to transform after swallowing the flesh of the peak Emperor-to-be. Demon kings of the Emperor-to-be level appeared in the demon summoning banner. It was another huge transformation. Chapter 2895. This was the first time that a demon king had transformed into a quasi-emperor from the demon flag. Yishuin had fed several quasi-emperors with their blood essences in the past, but none of them had produced quasi-emperors. At most, they had produced a few peak divine kings. But now, it seemed that the quantitative change had caused a qualitative change. There had been no change before, but now there had suddenly been a qualitative change. The so-called quantitative change had caused a qualitative change. They had absorbed so many quasi-emperors' blood essences in addition to their high level. Only then could they have a smooth breakthrough. The help of a quasi-emperor demon king to Yishuin and a divine king demon king to Yishuin couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. The transformation was still going on. Moreover, there was more than one demon king undergoing transformation. All of these would increase Yishuin's foundation and strength. Yishuin didn't have time to think. He directly grabbed the sky-splitting spear. Yishuin! An angry roar was heard. An attack fell from the sky and blocked Yishuin and the sky-splitting spear. Yishuin's efforts were in vain. The sky-splitting spear immediately turned into a streamer and flew into Great Freedom's hand. Great Freedom's strength had skyrocketed with 2 Dao tools in hand. His aura had also increased crazily. You're the last one left. Let's get rid of you together. Yishuin coldly looked at Great Freedom. Once upon a time, Great Freedom had posed a great threat to Yishuin. Even his spirit incarnation had made him feel a great danger. But now, he wasn't a match for Yishuin at all. He had defeated 3 of them. Yishuin couldn't help but sigh. The world was ever-changing. He wouldn't have believed it if he hadn't experienced it himself. Yishuin, you're good. Great Freedom looked at Yishuin with an extremely cold expression. You guys weren't a match for me even when you joined hands. Now, You want to overturn the heavens by yourself? Yi Shiwen sneered. It's time to settle the grievances between us. You must have never thought that such a day would come when you try to kill me. Yes, I never thought about it. I never thought about it. Great Freedom said coldly. Even if you beat me to death, I never thought that you would be able to grow to this extent in such a short period of time and become a great calamity for my Tian clan. If I had known earlier, I would have killed you no matter what price I had to pay. Back then, Yi Shiwen's strength was nothing in his eyes. Yi Shiwen was just a slightly threatening junior, nothing more. At that time, he didn't realize that Yi Shiwen could grow to this extent in such a short period of time. It was simply unimaginable. If there was medicine for regret, he would definitely kill the other party no matter what price he had to pay. Unfortunately, there were no ifs in this world. You knew it would be like this? Yi Shiwen coldly snorted. Even he himself hadn't thought that he could reach this step in such a short time. Unrestrained Heaven's aura became stronger and stronger, and his body became clearer and clearer. He was like a volcano that was about to erupt. He opened his eyes, and they seemed eternal and undying. The addition of the two Dao tools had increased his strength to an unprecedented level. His strength had almost reached the peak, the limit that a quasi-emperor could reach. Under normal circumstances, there was absolutely no method that could allow him to improve further. However, this Dao tool was an exception. Just by holding the Dao tool in his hand, the power that he could unleash would increase by several times. If Yi Shiwen hadn't also had the Dao tools, he would have killed ordinary peak quasi-emperors. However, it's not too late to kill you now. I will make up for what I didn't do before. I will kill you today, no matter what price I have to pay. Great Freedom said coldly. The threat that Yi Shiwen had given him made him feel an unprecedented pressure. He was determined not to let Yi Shiwen continue to grow. Otherwise, what would happen to him? It doesn't matter what price you pay. Not only will you die now, but even the dark Bodhi divine hand and the sky splitter spear will fall into my hands. Yi Shiwen said, especially the dark Bodhi divine hand. It was something he wanted very much. With the dark Bodhi divine hand in hand, the power of his 6 paths of reincarnation fist would be many times stronger. He was even confident that he could threaten the legendary Emperor. This was the great power that could be unleashed from a Dao item. In the hands of Great Freedom, it was simply a waste of God's gift. Yi Shiwen instantly attacked. He didn't want to talk nonsense with Great Freedom. He clenched the 6 paths of reincarnation fist and slammed it down with a loud bang. You still want to use this kind of power to suppress me? Great Freedom roared. His whole body seemed to have undergone a shocking change. He directly grabbed the sky splitter spear with the dark Bodhi divine hand, and then pierced the sky with the spear. Although Great Freedom hadn't practiced spear techniques before, he could still create an earth-shattering spear technique in a matter of minutes for an expert who had cultivated to the level of Great Freedom. Now that he had the power of 2 Dao tools, the power of his spear had suddenly increased by many levels. Boom! An earth-shattering collision sound was heard as both sides collided. Smoke filled the air, and the momentum of an army that could devour the mountains and rivers exploded in an instant. Countless mushroom clouds quickly rose around the two of them. Each of the mushroom clouds was as huge as an ancient divine mountain. The moment both sides collided, atoms were annihilated, and terrifying energy surged. Yi Shiwen remained motionless in this collision. However, Mahasvara was forced to retreat several steps. A trace of blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth. There was a look of utter disbelief in his eyes. He was holding 2 Dao tools in his hands, and yet he was still in a disadvantageous position against Yi Shiwen. How is this possible? I have 2 Dao tools in my hands, and you only have the time robe at your disposal. How can you be stronger than me? He could clearly feel that Yi Shiwen had indeed only used the power of the time robe, and not the Avicii sword. Even so, his 2 Dao tools couldn't even compare to Yi Shiwen's 1 Dao tool. How could this be possible? There was indeed a gap between Dao tools, but it was absolutely impossible for the gap to be this big. At this moment, he truly felt Yi Shiwen's formidable strength. Yi Shiwen was practically invincible. Yi Shiwen had single-handedly defeated 3 peak quasi-emperors, and even defeated him, the #1 expert in the world. This was tantamount to the collapse of a legend. He still didn't know that Yi Shiwen had also defeated the spirit of Ming Di. Otherwise, he would have been even more shocked. This kind of power had already far surpassed him. Yi Shiwen had single-handedly achieved something that he didn't even dare to imagine. What's so strange about this? Whether it's the sky-splitting spear or the dark Bodhi divine hand, none of them belong to you. How much strength can you use? How can it compare to my refining of the time robe? Yi Shiwen sneered and said, moreover, most importantly, don't you understand? Right now, your strength is far inferior to mine. This is a qualitative change. Impossible. You haven't even reached the peak of the quasi-emperor level. How can you be so powerful? Great Freedom's eyes were bloodshot. This had completely subverted his worldview and completely exceeded his expectations. In his worldview, it was impossible for such an abnormal existence to exist. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean that I can't. Obediently hand over the 2 Dao tools. Yi Shiwen said, I'll fight you to the death. Great Freedom roared again and again. Even if I have to die, I will let you die with me. I regret it now. Why didn't I kill you earlier? Why have you become such a big problem now? Boundless power burst out of Mahesvara's body, and in an instant, a huge wheel of light appeared behind him. However, Yi Shiwen's overturning the heaven seal also fell at this time. He condensed the world power in it, and it instantly rushed down. The light wheel behind Great Freedom was crushed in an instant. All of his attacks turned into nothingness. There was no way for him to resist Yi Shiwen. Bang! Great Freedom screamed and was sent flying on the spot. He was no longer a match for Yi Shiwen at this time. After all, Yi Shiwen had obtained the inheritance of the Devil King. It wasn't as simple as just a little bit of power. Instead, it was a comprehension that many people couldn't even imagine. Yi Shiwen could use the same bit of power several times. This was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Therefore, even a little bit of advantage could turn into an unparalleled advantage for Yi Shiwen. This was something that Great Freedom couldn't achieve. In fact, he couldn't even imagine it. Yi Shiwen chased after Great Freedom. The Avicii sword emerged and pierced through the blue dome of heaven. It fiercely slashed at Great Freedom's body. Dao tools had a certain degree of defensive capabilities. However, there was still a huge gap between them and a specialized defensive tool like the time robe. Moreover, the power of the Avicii sword was terrifying. It directly smashed the defense of the sky-splitting spear and the dark Bodhi divine hand, and directly chopped Great Freedom's body into 2 halves. Yi Shiwen thought that Great Freedom Heaven would reconstruct his body. However, he suddenly saw Great Freedom Heaven fleeing towards the void with the other half of his body. He tore a scroll with 1 half of his body. A huge space portal appeared in front of him. Then half of Great Freedom's body passed through it. Ha 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 ha, Yi Shiwen, you won't get 2 Dao tools even if I die. On the other half of his body, Great Freedom had a desolate and crazy smile on his face. He was staring at Yi Shiwen. You want to leave? Don't even think about it. Yi Shiwen chased after it. However, the other half of Great Freedom's body had already grown out. Then, it rushed towards Yi Shiwen to attack him. Chapter 2896. Mahesvara seemed to have gone crazy at this time. He grabbed Yi Shiwen crazily, not letting him escape. His whole body was burning with spiritual power. It seemed as if the world was falling. The world was mourning. A top expert had fallen. His death had even caused the world to resonate. It was an apocalyptic scene everywhere. It was extremely terrifying. Get lost! Yi Shiwen instantly understood what Mahesvara was thinking. He clearly wanted to stall Yi Shiwen so that the Sky Splitter could escape. He himself was desperately trying to stall Yi Shiwen so that the Sky Splitter would have enough time to escape. Moreover, he left the Dark Bodhi Divine Hand behind to stall Yi Shiwen. If he didn't have the Dark Bodhi Divine Hand, he wouldn't be able to stop Yi Shiwen. He would be torn apart in an instant. Neither the Sky Splitter nor the dark Bodhi divine hand would be able to escape. At this time, he didn't have any thoughts of killing Yi Shiwen. He just wanted to let one of them escape. Yi Shiwen could even guess what he was thinking. The dark Bodhi divine hand didn't have a tool spirit. In terms of value, it was inferior to the Sky Splitter, which had a tool spirit. It could still erupt with amazing combat power without the help of an emperor. He had made his choice almost instantaneously. It was no wonder that Mahesvara was a top-notch expert who had been the #1 expert in the world for such a long time. He was definitely an ambitious and decisive person. Even when he was forced into a corner, he still made the most appropriate choice. If it were Yi Shiwen, he would probably make the same choice. However, Yi Shiwen wouldn't let himself be forced to make such a choice. However, since Yi Shiwen had already understood, he couldn't let the other party have his way. Yi Shiwen pointed his finger. In an instant, the whole world seemed to rotate with his fingertip as the center. It condensed and erupted with the power of a world in an instant. Bang! Freedom Celestial screamed as he was sent flying. His entire body exploded in an instant. Even with the help of the dark Bodhi divine hand, his strength had dropped by a lot since he didn't have more than half of his body. He couldn't use the true power of the dark Bodhi divine hand. He was sent flying by Yi Shiwen's attack. The dark Bodhi's sacred hands ended up in such a state in your hands. What a waste of heavenly gifts! Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. He saw that the great freedom heavens had reformed his body and was rushing towards him. So, he didn't chase after the splitting sky spear. Instead, he rushed towards the great freedom heavens. The Avicii sword suddenly appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand. It chopped out an earth-shattering blood-red swordlight. It seemed as if an ancient mountain range had pierced through the stars and hacked down. Pucci! Mahesvara used his sacred dark Bodhi hand to block the attack, but it was not enough. Although he managed to block most of the sword of Avicii's swordlight, he was still sent flying. His fleshly body exploded in midair, turning into a bloody mist. At this moment, Yi Shiwen reacted quickly and grabbed the dark Bodhi divine hand. The moment Yi Shiwen tried to grab the dark Bodhi sacred hand, a huge figure suddenly emerged from the dark Bodhi sacred hand. A wisp of divine sense was faintly left behind, and it burst forth. It was Holy Lord Bodhi. At this critical moment, the last bit of Holy Lord Bodhi's spirit had burst forth in an attempt to stop Yi Shiwen. Audacious mortal! How dare you desecrate my relic? So, you're the one who's helping Mahesvara from behind. I was wondering why Mahesvara was able to use the dark Bodhi divine hand so freely in such a short period of time. So, you're the one who's secretly helping me. A sneer appeared on Yi Shiwen's face. The remnant soul of an Emperor Lord was indeed a great threat to others. However, it was nothing to him, not to mention the fact that it was dead. Even if it was alive, he had already killed it. However, this was just the right time. If he wanted to control the dark Bodhi divine hand under normal circumstances, he would have to spend a lot of time to find and refine this wisp of spirit that was secretly causing trouble. So, he could kill this wisp of spirit right now. It would save him a lot of time. Yi Shiwen chopped out with his sword and roared, buried sword art. Countless sword lights swept across the sky and turned into a huge long stream. It converged into a river and condensed into a river. It was like rivers flowing into the sea. Then, it fiercely chopped towards Holy Lord Bodhi's spirit. Pucci! Holy Lord Bodhi roared, "How dare you!" However, it was useless. The swordlight in Yi Shiwen's hand did not have the slightest emotion or fear. It directly pierced through him. Although the spirit of an Emperor Lord was also very terrifying, and ordinary quasi-emperors might not be able to hurt them, Yi Shiwen had the Avicii sword in his hand. It only took one sword strike to pierce through him, and he instantly turned into ashes. Holy Lord Bodhi's immortal spirit was burned by the blood-red sword chi of the Avicii sword, and it screamed as it turned into nothingness. The entire scene was extremely fast. Yi Shiwen had no intention of showing mercy at all. Grab it! Yi Shiwen's big hand suddenly grabbed towards the dark Bodhi divine hand. Without the remnant spirit of Holy Lord Bodhi causing trouble, The resistance of the dark Bodhi divine hand was obviously reduced a lot. It was instantly grabbed by Yi Shiwen and sucked into his time robe. It was naturally not that easy to refine the Dao tool in a short time. However, he could seal it first and slowly refine it later. All of this took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. At this time, the great unrestrained heavenly genius had just reconstructed his physical body. After losing half of his physical body, the strength of the great unrestrained heavenly genius had decreased by more than half. It was completely different from before. After Yi Shiwen had sucked the dark Bodhi divine hand into his time robe, he seemed to have finally reacted. If both sides of his body were present, there might be a slight possibility of fighting against Yi Shiwen. Now, he could only use his own life to stop Yi Shiwen's footsteps. Puchi! Yi Shiwen's sword slashed down. The great unrestrained heavenly genius had just reconstructed his physical body and was immediately slashed by the Avicii sword. His flesh and blood exploded, and waves of blood-curdling screams came from the void. His spirit was being burned by the blood-red sword chi of the Avicii sword. It was exactly the same as the situation of Holy Lord Bodhi. However, in comparison, even the spirit of an Emperor Lord couldn't do anything against the blood-red sword chi of the Avicii sword, let alone a half-crippled quasi-emperor. After destroying the great, unrestrained, heavenly genius's spirit, Yi Shiwen instantly sucked the flesh and blood of the great, unrestrained, heavenly genius into the demon flag. Suddenly, a rain of blood fell from the demon flag, and countless demon kings transformed into their original forms. They opened their mouths wide and began to crazily fight over the flesh and blood. This was the flesh and blood of a peak quasi-emperor. In this world, it was almost as precious as the divine materials used to cast out tools. It was extremely rare. Suddenly, several demon kings who were in the state of peak divine king began to undergo an astonishing transformation. After killing the great unrestrained heavenly genius, Yi Shiwen instantly chased after the sky-splitting spear and the other half of the great unrestrained heavenly genius. However, more than half of the great unrestrained heavenly genius's spirit had been killed by Yi Shiwen, and the remaining half of his body was only left with a remnant soul. Even if he were to let him go, it wouldn't affect the overall situation. More than half of the great unrestrained heavenly genius's spirit had been killed by Yi Shiwen. So, it would be impossible for him to return to his current realm for the rest of his life. In fact, it would be a huge problem whether he could maintain his quasi-emperor realm or not. When going to the opposite shore of cultivation, the body was the ship, and the spirit was the person on the ship. It was only possible to cross the boundless sea of bitterness and reach the opposite shore when both of them were intact. However, the great unrestrained heavenly boat had been damaged, and he had also suffered serious losses. So, any wind and rain could overturn him. Therefore, if the great, unrestrained, heavenly genius was smart, he would choose not to try to restore his strength. Otherwise, the obstacle set by the heavenly law would make him die without a burial place. However, what Yi Shiwen really cared about was the sky-splitting spear. He couldn't let this Dao tool escape. It had been some time since the sky-splitting spear had torn open a space channel. The crack was getting smaller and smaller, and the other half of the great, unrestrained, heavenly genius's body and the sky-splitting spear were nowhere to be seen. Yi Shiwen immediately took a step forward and chased after them. He rushed into the crack before it was completely closed. "Fix it for me!" Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. Bursts of 7-colored rays of light erupted from the time robe and fixed the space that seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. He wanted to preserve this passage so that he could come back when the time came. After that, he hurriedly chased after the great, unrestrained heavenly genius. He didn't know where this passage was, but he didn't care. He was in the myriad heavens now. Unless he directly encountered an emperor, he didn't have anything to fear. Moreover, he had left a passage behind. He could retreat if something went wrong. Yi Shiwen had just passed through the passage when he suddenly felt a majestic morale rushing towards him. It seemed to have formed a consciousness and madly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen immediately realized that this was a huge military camp. This kind of terrifying morale couldn't be released by an ordinary army. Only the gathering of tens of millions of invincible experts could form such a terrifying morale. The time robe on Yi Shiwen's body immediately reacted the moment he came into contact with this morale. He directly displayed the time divine kingdom and completely blocked and annihilated the morale. This prevented Yi Shiwen from being captured and crushed by this morale. Even so, Yi Shiwen's face still revealed a somewhat shocked expression. No wonder people say that 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Such a terrifying morale could actually threaten a peak quasi-emperor like him, who stood at the top of the myriad heavens. An ordinary quasi-emperor like the Hidden King would have suffered a huge blow to the morale the moment he rushed over. Yi Shiwen only had time to observe his surroundings after he swept away the morale that was rushing towards him. He suddenly revealed a somewhat stunned expression. Chapter 28:97. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but be stunned after checking the surrounding situation. This place wasn't any other place. It was the base camp of the Celestial Race and the Allied forces. The Celestial Race's base camp was located here in order to compete with the Allied forces. At the same time, they also wanted to delay the Allied forces. This place had become the most intense place for both sides to fight. Not only were the elites of both sides here, but more than half of the experts of both sides were also here. Other battlefields might not have seen experts of the level of Great Freedom Celestial. However, there were many experts of this level here. This had also made the battle between both sides intense to an unimaginable extent. The space in the center of the battlefield had already collapsed and turned into chaos. This had also increased the degree of danger on the battlefield. Now, Yi Shiwen had directly rushed to the top of the Celestial Race's headquarters. It was no wonder that Yi Shiwen had to face the endless attacks of the enemy's morale as soon as he came out. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. No matter how strong an expert was, it was difficult to resist the joint attacks of countless people. This was reflected incisively and vividly in the military formation. Even the top experts rarely dared to attack the military formation. Therefore, Great Freedom Celestial's attack on the Allied forces' headquarters was regarded as a miracle, especially the experts of both sides. They would be attacked by the morale of the enemy's army. They wouldn't dare to act as they pleased. However, experts of Yi Shiwen's level would only feel threatened here. No matter how many people there were in an ordinary military formation, they wouldn't be able to pose any threat to him, let alone the automatic defense of the time robe. Yi Shiwen also opened his eyes of redemption. He instantly saw half of Great Freedom Celestial's body fleeing towards the Celestial Race's headquarters. Half of his body had already regrown. However, his strength and aura were no longer the same as when he first saw him. They were not on the same level at all. "You want to leave?" Yi Shiwen sneered. His hands tore the sky full of divine radiance, and directly tore a huge crack in the boundless morale. The demon wings on his back suddenly spread open, and he chased after Yi Shiwen like a streamer. In the blink of an eye, he had already caught up with Great Freedom Celestial. Great Freedom Celestial hadn't expected that Yi Shiwen's speed would be so fast. He had almost caught up with him in a blink of an eye. He was scared to death. He hadn't expected that half of his body, which had gathered most of his strength, couldn't even delay Yi Shiwen for a little bit. Was he already this strong? He couldn't imagine Yi Shiwen's strength anymore after seeing the miserable state of Cold Moonstar Lord and Explosive Flame Tyrannical King. He believed that he would die a tragic death at Yi Shiwen's hands. However, at this time, Yi Shiwen was getting closer and closer. He immediately stopped and faced Yi Shiwen head-on, while the sky-splitting spear was directly thrown into the Heavenly Clan army. He was sacrificing himself to buy some time for the sky-splitter spear. This was also very possible. Yi Shiwen's appearance had alarmed the entire Tian clan allied forces in an instant. How could an expert of this level not shock everyone? Many figures had already rushed out from the void. Their auras soared into the sky and faintly surrounded Yi Shiwen to kill him. Just a little bit of time, and Yi Shiwen will be surrounded. At that time, Yi Shiwen will be dead. Yi Shiwen, I'll drag you down with me even if I die today. You've dared to break into our base camp. This is your biggest mistake. You'll die today. Yi Shiwen's face revealed a sinister look as he roared crazily. Yi Shiwen, I'll drag you down with me even if I die today. Yi Shiwen sneered slightly. Do you think you can stop me? Those who block me will die. Buried sword technique. The Avicii sword in Yi Shiwen's hand instantly erupted with an astonishing sword light. It split in the sky and transformed into a huge, long river of sword principles in an instant. And it cleaved towards the Great Freedom Heaven. Puff! The Great Freedom Heavens didn't even have the time to react. He was chopped into pieces by Yi Shiwen, just like the other half of his body. His primordial spirit burned and melted. His flesh and blood were swallowed by the demon-calling flag. How dare you? Stop! A burst of angry roars came from the Tian clan coalition. Yi Shiwen had dared to kill people under their noses. He simply didn't put them in his eyes. It could even be said that this was equivalent to slapping their faces in front of their faces. Many people were even more shocked and angry. Yi Shiwen had killed Freedom in a very straightforward manner. He had killed him with one strike and hadn't given them any time to rescue him. They were even more shocked in their hearts. The dignified world's #1 expert, Freedom, couldn't even resist one strike from Yi Shiwen and was instantly killed. They could see that Freedom had been seriously injured and his strength had been severely damaged. But even so, the fact that he couldn't even resist one strike from Yi Shiwen still left them completely stunned. They couldn't believe it. What the hell happened? How did this happen? Freedom was originally known as invincible. Why was he chased by Yi Shiwen in such a difficult situation? How did he get killed in a second before they could even rescue him? Could it be that Yi Shiwen had already become so strong? Many people's expressions suddenly changed. They were all high-level experts of the Tian clan. Some of them also knew why Freedom, Explosive Flame King, and Cold Moonstar Lord left their base camp and went to the abyss. They wanted to protect Emperor and I. But now, only Freedom had escaped. What about Emperor and I? What about the others? What about Cold Moonstar Lord? What about Explosive Flame King? They were completely confused. But suddenly, a very bad thought flashed in their minds. Damn it. Could it be that even Emperor and I was killed by Yi Shiwen? If Freedom was dead, then they could still bear such a loss. But if even Emperor and I was killed, then they would really cry in the toilet. What the hell had happened to them? Could it be that the legendary Emperor had descended and manifested? This was probably the most reasonable explanation they could come up with. They simply could not imagine that 3 peak quasi-emperors, 2 Dao weapons, and a group of experts would be completely annihilated. Only the Mahasvara of the realm of Freedom managed to return and was hunted down all the way to his hometown. Who could have such an ability? It must be the legendary Emperor. After all, Freedom was already the strongest person below the Emperor. Except for the Emperor, no one could hurt him like that. Not to mention that Yi Shiwen took advantage of the situation and killed him. And the culprit of all this was obviously Yi Shiwen in front of them. Go kill him. We must not let him go. Catch him and force him to tell us what happened. Kill this damned human. The angry voices of many Tian clan experts suddenly spread in all directions, representing the anger of these top experts of the Tian clan. In addition to the aura of these top experts, there were also many powerful auras recovering. These were the powerful formations of the Tian clan army. In an instant, all of them had recovered. Many of these were Emperor level formations. The recovery of each formation could make ordinary quasi-emperors tremble. Now, all of them had recovered because of Yi Shiwen. In an instant, Yi Shiwen perceived countless tyrannical auras. Some of them even made his heart palpitate. In other words, they had the strength to threaten him. At this time, he understood why Freedom was famous and became a miracle when he broke into the Allied forces to protect himself. It was because this in itself was a miracle. 1 or 2 of these auras and 1 or 2 Emperor Lord level formations would find it very difficult to deal with him given his current strength. In fact, Even 10 or 8 Emperor Lord level formations wouldn't be able to deal with him. However, the situation would be completely different when these formations and auras increased to hundreds or thousands of them. Quantitative change would lead to qualitative change, and this would be the case. Yishuan instantly stopped in his tracks. Although he was just a little bit away, he still watched helplessly as the sky-splitting spear escaped. In the depths of the Heavenly Clan's headquarters, several auras soared into the sky, piercing through the blue dome of heaven. Yishuan immediately recognized them. They were actually the auras of Dao tools. Under the coordination of these Emperor Lord level arrays, they resonated with each other, bringing great pressure to Yishuan. 1 or 2 experts weren't enough to scare him. However, when so many experts work together, even an emperor would have to avoid them. Some of these methods could seriously injure an Emperor Lord. They were the unique methods left behind by the Emperor Lord's inheritances. They were also used by the Emperor Lord's inheritances to protect themselves. Yishuan didn't want to bump into them and get exhausted to death. However, Yishuan's speed was too fast. Even if he reacted quickly, he had already chased too deep. The experts of the Tian clan had rushed over from all directions. From this aspect, Freedom's plan was considered successful. Although he couldn't even block Yishuan's sword, he had still succeeded in delaying for time. He had successfully bought time for the other experts of the Tian clan to rush over. Many tyrannical auras had already appeared around Yishuan. These experts of the Tian clan were like a pack of wolves that smelled blood. They rushed out directly. Even the Allied forces' headquarters were alarmed. They had been paying attention to the situation of the Tian clan. They immediately discovered the abnormal movements of the experts of the Tian clan. Suddenly, alarm bells rang. Everyone thought that the Tian clan was planning to launch a huge attack again. Experts from all sides gathered in an instant. What are the Tian clan planning to do? Are they planning to fight with us? At this time, Yishuan, who was surrounded in the middle, didn't panic. He just said coldly, "Do you think that you can stop me by relying on numbers?" Chapter 2898. Although he was surrounded, Yishuan was not worried. Breaking into the camp of the celestial race would pose a huge threat to him. However, as long as he did not break in, he did not need to be afraid of anyone with his current cultivation. Even a powerhouse with the cultivation of Mahasvara, heaven would die in his hands. Yishuan, why don't you quickly surrender? At this time, several tyrannical quasi-emperors had already flown around Yishuan. Without exception, they all had a tyrannical aura. They were the best among the quasi-emperors. They were the elites of the elites who were stationed in the camp. These people were the closest to Yishuan, so they were the first to fly over. Many great formations were being activated. Boom! An earth-shattering divine radiance turned into a beam of light and fiercely blasted towards Yishuan. Bang! However, Yishuan just waved his hand and instantly dispersed this earth-shattering divine radiance on the spot. This attack, which could threaten a quasi-emperor, did not even cause any trouble to Yishuan. Seeing this scene, the complexion of the late-stage quasi-emperor expert of the heavenly race, who was the leader of the quasi-emperor experts, suddenly changed. His eyes flashed with a sharp light. Although he was confident that no one could be impudent in the heavenly race's camp, he was not a fool. Yishuan's attack had thoroughly shocked him. If it were him, even if he did not dodge, he would not be able to disperse this attack from a great formation with a casual attack. What an amazing degree of physical strength. At this time, he suddenly remembered all kinds of legends about Yishuan. A long time ago, it was said that Yishuan had killed a master of the late stage of quasi-emperor. In these years, even if he did not make any progress, he should not be underestimated. However, he did not care anymore, because at this time, the forcibly activated formations began to recover. Countless beams of light fell from the sky, penetrated the sky, and fiercely bombarded towards Yishuan. For a moment, the entire world was filled with these divine lights that filled the sky. They fell down like raindrops. However, these were no ordinary raindrops. Any one of them could pierce through the stars and overturn the world. This was a formation that had been left behind from ancient times until now. The celestial race had once used their own strength to fight against all the races in the universe, and developed their civilization to an unimaginable degree. In the path of formations, they had also developed to the peak. They were invincible. Even among the inheritances of the various races, it was difficult to find so many powerful formations. However, the Tian clan was able to do so. One could imagine how tyrannical they were. Yi Shiwen was submerged in countless energy beams in an instant. His figure couldn't be seen clearly in an instant. That's great. Ha ha ha. Who asked him to be so arrogant? Now he knows how powerful we are. Many of the Tian clan experts could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Yi Shiwen himself was already famous. Even if he had not made any progress in the past few years, he was still not someone an ordinary Tian clan could compare to. Everyone had witnessed how Yi Shiwen had insta-killed the vast freedom heavens. So, they couldn't help but feel nervous. They couldn't help but secretly cheer in their hearts when they saw Yi Shiwen being submerged in a tidal wave of attacks. Let him be cocky, but no matter how cocky he was, barging in so casually would only lead to death. Many of the war fortresses had just removed their camouflage. Originally, they were just about to open their cannons, but now it seemed that they didn't need to. However, just when they were heaving a sigh of relief, they found that in the area that had been smashed by the tidal wave of attacks, a figure was still standing in the void. Yi Shiwen, he's not dead, someone exclaimed. That tidal wave of attacks couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. However, what was even more terrifying was that they were horrified to find that Yi Shiwen didn't even have a decent injury on his body. It was almost as if he was completely unharmed. He had forcibly taken on an attack that could destroy a peak quasi-emperor, and yet he was completely unscathed. Many of the timid Tian clan experts even felt like their liver was being torn apart. Was he a monster? Even a powerful race like the Tian clan that dominated the world would feel fear when faced with something that was beyond their control. Moreover, it was an intense fear. He has the time robe, someone suddenly said, as if he had suddenly realized something. Only then did everyone understand why Yi Shiwen was able to block their attacks so easily. Although the array formation they had left behind was the means of an emperor, the other party had a Dao tool on him. Was there anything more direct than this? Go continue to attack. I don't believe that he can activate the time magic robe to a certain extent. Attack him until he reaches the critical point. Even if the time magic robe can withstand the attacks, I don't believe that he has enough Emperor origins to activate the time magic robe. Someone roared in anger. Many people came back to their senses. Indeed, a person with a Dao tool was indeed powerful, but he still couldn't ignore the counterattack of the Tian clan. Since ancient times, even those Emperor-level inheritances with Dao tools couldn't dominate the world because of this. Whoosh! 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 Countless divine lights soared into the sky and instantly blasted towards Yi Shiwen again. For a time, the attacks that blotted out the sky swept towards Yi Shiwen like a tide. It was almost impenetrable. The endless attacks had no loopholes at all. From all directions, all of Yi Shiwen's escape routes were blocked. However, a scene that everyone didn't expect happened. Yi Shiwen didn't have the slightest intention to dodge. In his hand, a stone sword appeared, and countless stone energy burst out in an instant. And then Yi Shiwen suddenly made his move. Bang! 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 In an instant, Yi Shiwen threw out thousands of sword lights in the sky. These sword lights seemed to have completely divided the world into countless pieces in an instant. It was terrifying. Those divine lights that rushed over were instantly cut by Yi Shiwen's sword lights. Yi Shiwen's sword shadows had also reached an unimaginable speed. So, these densely packed and tide-like divine light attacks couldn't break through the sword shadows around Yi Shiwen's body even once. Not even a single one of them could break through the sword shadows around him. Everyone could only watch as Yi Shiwen's sword lights organized an astonishing wall around his body. All the attacks that reached his body were annihilated and engulfed. So fast. The few quasi-emperors who were in front of Yi Shiwen just now had already flown far away. Otherwise, they would have been affected by the tide of divine lights. They didn't have Yi Shiwen's skills, so they were afraid that they would be killed in an instant. But at this time, they couldn't help but be shocked. With the vision of their quasi-emperors, they couldn't see through Yi Shiwen's attack speed. They could only watch as Yi Shiwen's sword shadows formed a protection around him. That tide-like offensive suddenly stopped. Everyone was shocked to find that not only was Yi Shiwen motionless, but there was also a faint smile on his face. It seemed as if he was laughing at their attacks. Just now, there were some people of the celestial race who thought that Yi Shiwen could block the attack just now because of the Emperor's source in the time robe. But now, Yi Shiwen had slapped their faces with his actions. Even if he didn't use the Dao tools, they couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. How can he be so fast? The people of the celestial race couldn't help but be stunned. Yi Shiwen's attack speed was really fast, blinding their corium, or dog eyes. Among them, there were some who were good at speed, but at this time, compared with Yi Shiwen, they quickly realized that it was impossible for them to have that kind of speed. If they didn't have Yi Shiwen's speed, it was absolutely impossible to survive such an attack. How can his strength be so strong to this extent? In the camp of the celestial race, a high-level celestial race said in shock. Yi Shiwen was the most rising top expert of the human race. It was impossible for the celestial race to not pay attention to him. Because of this, they thought that they knew Yi Shiwen's strength like the back of their hands. They couldn't believe it. How could Yi Shiwen's cultivation advance by leaps and bounds in such a short period of time? Go kill him. I just asked the sky-splitting spear. In the abyss, this guy not only killed Freedom Heaven, Explosive Flame, Evil King, and Cold Moonstar Lord, even the Dark Bodhi Divine Hand fell into his hands. A high-level celestial race was instantly furious. But this guy's strength is too strong. He is almost above Freedom Heaven. If we want to force him to stay, we will have to pay an absolutely huge price. Even our camp of the celestial race may suffer heavy losses. The losses are immeasurable. Even if the losses are immeasurable now, it is better than letting him grow. We can still deal with him now. Do we have to wait for him to achieve Tao in the future? A high-level celestial race said angrily. We must kill him while the situation is still under control. We must not let him go. Soon, the high-level celestial race had already made a decision. Even if they had to suffer heavy losses, they must make him stay. Most importantly, they still had a trump card. As long as D and I achieved Tao, not to mention heavy losses, even if there was only one person left, they could still turn the situation around. Moreover, the celestial race's camp was only a part of the overall strength of the celestial race. It was far from the time when they would suffer heavy losses. Go! Kill him! We can't let him escape. Not only did he kill Mahasvara, Explosive Flame, Ruthless King, and Frigid Moon, but even the Dark Bodhi Divine Hand has fallen into his hands. Someone in the celestial camp roared. It immediately aroused the anger of everyone. Obviously, the sky-splitting spear had fled back and informed everyone about the situation in the abyss. They also knew what had happened in the abyss, which made everyone even more shocked. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.